Chapter 2091. The distance was getting closer and closer. The four middle-aged men only curiously sized up Qin Feiyang and the other two during the whole process. They looked harmless to humans and animals. If they didn't know beforehand, they definitely wouldn't have suspected them. The distance between the front and the back was only about 100 feet. For war gods and above, this distance was within reach. Whoosh! At this moment, the four men suddenly accelerated and went straight for Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi's backs. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. It's really them. Qin Feiyang and the other two felt a chill in their hearts. At such a close distance, if they weren't prepared, they wouldn't be able to react at all. The people below were undoubtedly a good example. Although the four men had already revealed their killing intent, they were all in a state of ignorance. They were either whispering to each other or busy with their own things. In the blink of an eye, on the faces of the four men, a smile of success appeared. Because in their view, in the face of such a sudden sneak attack, even if the other party's reaction was extraordinary, it would be impossible for them to react. Death was a foregone conclusion. However, just when they were full of confidence and thought that they could succeed in one strike, Qin Feiyang grabbed Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi, used the walk character art, and swooped down, instantly appearing above the city gate. The four men were stunned. What was going on? It was as if they already knew that they would sneak attack. The people below also finally noticed the abnormality in the sky. What's going on? The people glanced at Qin Feiyang and the other two middle-aged men, their eyes full of surprise. Who are you? Why did you sneak attack us? Qin Feiyang stood above the city gate, gloomily staring at the four middle-aged men, and shouted in a stern voice, "Sneak attack? What's going on?" In an instant, the people on the plain were in an uproar. The four middle-aged men glanced at Qin Feiyang, turned around without hesitation, and flew away. Who gave you the courage to hurt the people of Nine Heavens Palace? Suddenly, a violent shout exploded out of thin air, like thunder, deafening. Following closely, a black-clothed young man appeared in the void and stood in front of the four people. It's Senior Brother Madman. The disciples of Nine Heavens Palace below recognized the black-robed young man immediately. Their eyes were filled with reverence, as though they had just seen their idol. He's that famous lunatic? He's so lawless that he doesn't even put the heads of the Nine Heavens Palace in his eyes? What a powerful aura! He must be a terrifying existence that has already surpassed the level of a perfect divine lord. Everyone discussed animatedly, their faces filled with fear. However, Qin Feiyang and the other two had a hint of doubt in their eyes. Shouldn't Shangguan Fenglan be the one to help them? How did he become a lunatic? At the same time, the four middle-aged men hovered in the air as they looked at the madman before them. Their faces were filled with fear. Obviously, they all knew what Madman was capable of. Madman glanced at the four of them and sneered, "Do you want to die kneeling or lying down?" The corners of Qin Feiyang and the other two's mouths twitched. Was there a difference? Lying down was death. Kneeling was death. Either way, they were going to die. When the four heard this, their pupils shrank. Swoosh! Immediately after, they quickly scattered and used teleportation to escape in four different directions. Mere four great success divine lords also wished to escape from in front of me? Madman's face was filled with disdain. Boom! The peerlessly terrifying pressure was like a torrent, surging towards the four people with an earth-shattering momentum. The four of them were immediately imprisoned in the air as though they were stuck in a quagmire. They couldn't move at all. This aura, his cultivation has indeed surpassed the Divine Lord realm. Someone below exclaimed. Surpassed the Divine Lord realm. Everyone gasped. Just how terrifying was Madman's strength? I'm asking you, how do you want to die? The madman waved his hand and directly grabbed the four of them from afar. It was as if an invisible hand had grabbed tightly onto their necks, causing them to be unable to breathe. The four's eyes were filled with despair. Not going to speak? Then, according to my usual methods, I'll grant you death. Madman chuckled and slowly raised his arm. His 5 fingers bent like an eagle's claw as he aimed at one of them. Immediately, his 5 fingers slowly contracted. That person's body immediately began to deform. Streaks of red blood spurted out from the pores all over his body like a fountain. That scene was as if there were several invisible mountains crazily squeezing this person's body. That heart-wrenching pain caused his face to distort. Pain and helplessness. When the other three saw this scene, their faces turned ashen. Even the people below couldn't help but turn pale. He was going to crush that person's divine body. Ah, finally! Accompanied by an ear-piercing scream, that person's body suddenly exploded in the air. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. To be able to crush a great divine lord so casually, this madman is really not ordinary terrifying. Mu Tianyang muttered. Yes, this person is worthy of being the number one on the heaven list. Well, he couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. With such strength, they could only look up to him. Shua. Madman licked his lips as if killing people brought him pleasure. He then swept his gaze over the other three. However, just by looking at Madman's eyes, the three of them felt as if they had fallen into hell. Their bodies turned cold. Madman looked at the three of them and smiled. How about this? Let's change the topic. Why did you want to harm Jiang Haoyin and the others? Who was the mastermind behind this? Hearing this, the three of them looked even more terrified. Not going to speak? Wait until I bring you back to Nine Heaven Palace. I have 10,000 ways to make you speak. Madman chuckled and opened a teleportation altar. Senior brother Madman, I know them. Suddenly, a flattering voice sounded from the crowd below. And Madman and Qin Feiyang were taken aback. They looked down at the same time and saw a young man wearing Nine Heaven Palace's uniform rise up from the crowd. It's you? Qin Feiyang was surprised. This person was actually Ma Guang. Ma Guang smiled flatteringly. I didn't expect senior brother Jiang to still remember me. It's a great honor. We entered Nine Heaven Palace together and lived on the same sword peak. How could I forget you? Qin Feiyang smiled. Ma Guang was the person Chengli had arranged to monitor him. However, Ma Guang was also a smart person and didn't listen to Chengli. Madman asked, You said you know them? Yes. Some time ago, I saw one of them in Nine Heaven Palace. It's him. Ma Guang pointed to the person on the left and said, Don't talk nonsense. That person's face changed as he hurriedly shouted, Shut up for me. Madman's eyes turned cold. He took a step forward and punched that person's mouth. Ah, that person suddenly screamed. His teeth were shattered and his mouth was smashed. Blood dripped out. Madman smiled contemptuously and looked down at Ma Guang. Continue. Ma Guang said, He is, However, before he could say anything, Ma Guang suddenly let out a painful scream. Immediately after, Ma Guang fell to the ground and his life force quickly disappeared. Qin Feiyang's face changed as he hurriedly flew towards Ma Guang. Don't go down. There are still Feng Yuan's lackeys hiding in the crowd. Hua Yi hurriedly grabbed Qin Feiyang and glanced at the crowd below as he transmitted his voice. Qin Feiyang's heart sank as he looked at Ma Guang. He was surprised to find that on the back of Ma Guang's head, there was a small bloody hole with blood flowing out. Obviously, someone had plotted against Ma Guang behind his back. But the problem was, with so many people present, why didn't anyone discover the person who plotted against Ma Guang? Even Madman didn't notice. Where was this person hiding? Madman was also a little stunned. He glanced at the crowd and the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. He laughed and said, It's getting more and more interesting. As soon as his voice faded, his divine sense surged out like a tidal wave, covering the entire plain. Everything was clear in his eyes. However, but he didn't find a suspicious person. He also didn't find any spatial divine objects. Wait, suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have thought of something as he hurriedly glanced at the other three people and shouted, Senior brother Madman, quickly put them into the spatial divine object. However, before his voice faded, another three shrill screams rang out. He saw that the three people who were imprisoned in the void by Madman also had a bloody hole between their eyebrows, penetrating from the front to the back as blood gushed out. The divine soul in the sea of consciousness had already turned into ashes. It's still too late. Qin Feiyang was extremely angry as he scanned the void. Where was this person hiding? Then he looked at Madman. Looking at the three people who had died, His brows were twitching and his veins were popping out. Who was he? He was the famous madman of the Nine Heavens Palace. He had always been the only one who killed in front of others, and no one dared to act rashly in front of him. And this time, Ma Guang and the other three were actually killed one after another. To him, this was a humiliation. Very good. Very good. Laozi is completely angry. All of a sudden, Madman laughed sinisterly as his divine power surged out like a waterfall, covering the sky and the sun as it surged out in all directions. In an instant, a giant divine barrier appeared. Not only did it cover the entire plain, it even spread to the entire sky above Sky Dragon City. Rumble. The barrier fell. Sky Dragon City, as well as the thousands of miles around Sky Dragon City, were all covered by the barrier. This place had become a huge cage. From now on, you are only allowed to enter and not allowed to leave. Whoever dares to cause trouble, die. Madman shouted. His voice was like a bell, resounding in all directions and clearly transmitted into everyone's ears. What's going on? Who set up this divine barrier? Not only the plains outside the 4 city gates, even the city itself had fallen into chaos. Qin Feiyong frowned as he flew in front of Madman and whispered, "Senior brother Madman, why don't we forget about it first?" Forget about it? How is that possible? If we don't find this person today, we won't give up. Madman smiled coldly. Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang also flew over. Hua Yi thought, although Ma Guang was killed, from what he said at the beginning, it's not hard to deduce the origin of these 4 people. That's right. Ma Guang said that some time ago, he had seen one of them in the Nine Heavens Palace. That's enough to prove that these 4 people are from our Nine Heavens Palace. After all, outsiders are unable to enter the Nine Heavens Palace. Qin Feiyong nodded. Chapter 2092. So what if we know their background and identity? If we don't know who's behind it, it's useless. Madman snorted. Qin Feiyong sighed. They've already been silenced. How can we investigate? Yeah, there are so many people in Sky Dragon City. Especially today, there's a sea of people inside and outside the city. Even if he shows up now, we won't be able to find him. Rather than wasting time, it's better to give up and find another chance in the future. Moreover, today is an important day for the Treasure Pavilion to auction the 4 symbols Infinite Divine Pill. If we continue like this, we'll be smashing their place. Hoi smiled. Madman raised his eyebrows as he looked at the 3 and asked, "Why did you come to Sky Dragon City?" Naturally, for the 4 symbols Infinite Divine Pill. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "Senior brother, why have you appeared here? We also wanted to see the 4 symbols Infinite Divine Pill, but we didn't expect to encounter such a thing before we even entered the city. It's really annoying. But you're right, we won't be able to find him if we search now." Madman sighed helplessly. With a wave of his hand, the divine power barrier covering Sky Dragon City quickly dissipated. Qin Feiyong and the other 2 looked at each other and said, "Senior brother Madman, since we're all going to the Treasure Pavilion, why don't we go together?" Together? Madman was slightly taken aback and sneered, "You want me to be a free bodyguard, right?" The 3 laughed embarrassedly. Madman rolled his eyes and waved his sleeves. "Don't waste time. Let's go." Okay. The 3 nodded and quickly followed behind Madman towards the city gate. Right. Madman suddenly turned around and looked at the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace behind him. "Take the corpses of Ma Guang and the others to the enforcement hall and let Shangguan Fenglan investigate their identities." Yes. The disciples respectfully replied and took the corpses of Ma Guang and the others, opening an altar and quickly leaving. Qin Feiyong and the other 3 also entered the city. Everywhere they went, people would make way for them. The guards guarding the city didn't even dare to ask anything and directly let them pass. A moment later, the 4 of them arrived at the entrance of the Treasure Pavilion without any hindrance. A staff member stepped forward and asked, "Do the 4 of you have an appointment?" "An appointment?" Madman raised his eyebrows and asked, "What's an appointment?" The staff member looked at the 4 of them and said, "I'm sorry, but you don't have an appointment today, so you can't enter." Ugh. Qin Feiyong and the other 2 were dumbfounded. This person actually dared to reject a madman? Can't enter? Madman smiled playfully and looked at the staff member. What did you say? Say it again? This. Looking at the overbearing lunatic, the staff member was a little flustered. What are you doing? Get out of the way. Suddenly, another staff member quickly ran over and scolded the staff member. She was a young woman in her 20s. The staff felt wronged and said, "They didn't make an appointment." The young woman scolded. "Who are they? Do I even need to make an appointment? Hurry up and get out of the way, otherwise our treasure pavilion won't be able to open for business today." The staff member's expression changed as he looked at Qin Feiyang and the other three in surprise. They actually had such a big background? Then he quickly retreated to the side. The young woman looked at Qin Feiyang and the other three and smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry, the four of you. He's new here and doesn't know your names. Please forgive him for offending you." "It's fine." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Young Master Jiang is really reasonable. The steward has already expected young Master Jiang to come, so he has already arranged a VIP room in advance. "The four of you, please come in." The young woman smiled flatteringly. Madman glanced at the staff member and swaggered in. Qin Feiyang and the other two followed closely behind. The young woman looked at the backs of Qin Feiyang and the other three and walked to the front of the staff member. She whispered, "The people here today are basically all big shots of the northern region. Even if they don't have an appointment, you have to be polite, understand?" "Okay." The staff member nodded. Auction house. The young woman led Qin Feiyang and the other three into VIP room number 1. Although there was still a long time before the auction began, the outside was already filled with people. There were even quite a few people standing behind. It was very noisy. Every one of them exuded an extraordinary aura. They were either extremely wealthy people or the patriarch of a prestigious family. In short, those who could enter the auction house today were basically rich and respectable existences. Qin Feiyang glanced at the auction house and waved his hand. "You can leave. Don't disturb us if there's nothing important." "Yes." The young woman respectfully replied and turned to walk out of the VIP room and closed the door. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman and smiled. "Senior brother, I'm afraid you didn't come to Sky Dragon City today for the Four Symbols Infinite Divine Pill." Madman sprawled on the chair and said disdainfully, "What Four Symbols Infinite Divine Pill? I'm not interested." As expected, Qin Feiyang muttered, "Not long ago, I was sleeping soundly in the duty hall, but that woman Shangguan Fenglan suddenly sent me a message, saying that you might be in trouble and asked me to help you. Originally, I wasn't willing, but she said that it was the Great Elder's orders, so I had no choice but to come and take a look. I didn't expect you to really be in trouble. I'm puzzled. Why is it that no matter where you go, there are people who want to plot against you?" Madman looked at Qin Feiyang with an extremely strange expression. Qin Feiyang rubbed his nose and said with a smile, "Maybe it's because I have good relationships with people." "Good relationships with people?" Madman's eyes were filled with disdain. Qin Feiyang said, "Did Shangguan Fenglan say anything else to you?" "Anything else?" Madman was stunned and joked. "Then what do you think she will tell me?" "This." Qin Feiyang hesitated for a moment and sighed. "To tell you the truth, the people who came to assassinate us this time were sent by Feng Yuan." Madman even knew his true identity, so it didn't seem to matter if he told him this. "Feng Yuan?" Madman was stunned for a moment, then nodded in realization. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two and said, "So you already knew. And this is all thanks to Mu Tianyang. He is now undercover by Feng Yuan's side. No matter what Feng Yuan does, we will know immediately," Qin Feiyang said. Madman glanced at Mu Tianyang and said, "So, this time you wanted to capture those four people alive and then overthrow Feng Yuan?" "That's right." Unfortunately, they were silenced. Qin Feiyang shook his head regretfully. "Naive." Madman sneered. "Naive?" Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other and looked at Madman suspiciously. "Even if you capture them alive, they won't pose any threat to Feng Yuan, because Feng Yuan himself didn't appear from the beginning to the end. He can completely deny it." "Unless there is direct evidence," Madman said. When Qin Feiyang and the other two heard this, they lowered their heads and pondered for a moment. It seemed to make sense. Madman's gaze turned and landed on Mu Tianyang, saying, "Aren't you undercover by Feng Yuan's side?" And Mu Tianyang nodded. "Isn't that easy? Go directly to him and get him to say that these people were sent by him. Take the opportunity to record it. Isn't this video irrefutable evidence?" At that time, even if he has 100 mouths, he won't be able to deny it. Madman said lightly, "Yes." Mu Tianyang's eyes lit up. Of course, just this small matter is not enough to bring him down. After all, his status is too high. As long as he takes the initiative to admit his mistake in front of the First Elder will definitely not pursue it. At most, the First Elder will just scold him a little. So, you still need to plan carefully, Madman said. Qin Feiyang and the other two cupped their hands and said, "Thank you for your advice, senior brother." Did I say anything? I don't think so. Madman frowned. The three of them were stunned for a moment, but soon understood. They nodded and smiled. Understood. Senior brother, you didn't say anything? Ha ha. Madman laughed loudly, and his brows loosened. The sun was high in the sky. A woman in white finally appeared on the auction stage. It was Shangguanxiu. She wore a long white dress that was spotless. Her black hair was like a waterfall, soft and beautiful. Her whole person was radiant and full of energy. With the arrival of Shangguanxiu, the originally noisy auction house quieted down, because they knew that the thing they were looking forward to was about to appear. "Thank you for coming to the Treasure Pavilion today, and for trusting us all this time. Here, on behalf of everyone in the Treasure Pavilion, I sincerely thank you." Shangguanxiu finished her opening speech in a few words, and then bowed deeply to everyone. I won't say any more polite words, because I believe that no one wants to hear it now. Then, I'll go straight to the main topic today. Everyone present already has some understanding of the situation regarding the four symbols infinite divine pill. I believe that many of you are now wondering if such a pill really exists in the world. Now, I'll tell you that it does exist. And I guarantee on the reputation of the Treasure Pavilion that if this pill is fake, not only will we return the soul stones, we will also compensate you 10 times the amount. Shangguanxiu smiled. 10 times the amount? Then it must be real. Miss Shangguan, we still trust the reputation of the Treasure Pavilion. Let's get started. Someone began to urge them. Thank you again for your trust. Today, the Treasure Pavilion will auction a total of 10 four symbols infinite divine pills, and we don't know when the next auction will be held, so please cherish this opportunity. First, the first pill. Shangguanxiu took out a jade box and gently opened it. An elixir floated out of the jade box. The 9 elixir veins on it were as dazzling as the stars. That's the four symbols infinite divine pill? It's actually 9 elixir veins? Which alchemy master made this? At this moment, everyone's eyes were attracted by the four symbols infinite divine pill floating in front of Shangguanxiu. Some were surprised, some were shocked, and some were excited. Chapter 2093. I definitely know which Grandmaster the four symbols infinite divine pellet came from. Shangguanxiu smiled. Then tell us. Let us know who this great man is. The crowd shouted. These two masters are really great, because the 9 Chu Yellow Dragon Pill, the 9 Turn Dragon Blood Pill, and the four symbols infinite divine pill were all made by them. Furthermore, they were the ones who worked tirelessly and spent countless years researching it. Shangguanxiu said. What? They researched and developed them? The crowd could not believe their ears. They had thought that some alchemy masters were lucky enough to get the prescriptions of these elixirs from some ancient site. They had never expected that they had researched and developed them independently. In other words, they had created 3 new elixir prescriptions. Such a shocking move could be said to be unprecedented in the past and never to be repeated in the future. They were more and more curious about the 2 masters that Shangguanxiu had mentioned. Who were they? How could they have such terrifying wisdom? Shangguanxiu scanned the crowd and said with a smile, "These 2 masters are." Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang frowned as they looked at Shangguanxiu, who was beaming with joy. Hua Yi glanced at Qin Feiyang and Madame, then looked up at Shangguanxiu and frowned as well. Frenzy was curious. The people in the other VIP rooms and the crowd outside also held their breaths as they stared at Shang Guanqiu. After a long while, Shang Guanqiu suddenly smiled and shook his head. "I'm sorry, everyone. This is a secret. I can't reveal it." Hearing this, the crowd could not help but curse. "If it's a secret, why are you acting like you're going to reveal it? You're obviously making a fool of us." Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If Shang Guanqiu really revealed it, there would be more trouble in the future. Actually, I also want to tell you, but the two masters kept a low profile. They told us not to reveal their identities. So, everyone, please don't ask around. Now, I announce the start of the auction. The starting price is 1 million soul stones. There's no upper limit. Shang Guanqiu shouted. However, as soon as Shang Guanqiu finished speaking, the whole place fell into a dead silence. The frenzied scramble that Shang Guanqiu had expected did not happen. Everyone was silent. What's the situation? Even Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang were confused, let alone Shang Guanqiu. Was the price too high? The low price was indeed too high. Although the people present were all extremely wealthy and noble, one must know that this was not 1 million divine crystals. Instead, it was 1 million soul stones. Who would be willing to take out 1 million soul stones at once? Furthermore, 1 million soul stones was only the lowest price. It would definitely be better later on. Everyone, what's wrong with you? This 4 symbols everlasting godly pill is enough to allow any divine battle god to break through to the next level, saving a lot of time. Time is precious. I don't need to say it. Everyone knows that no amount of money can buy it, especially the perfect war gods among you. I don't know if you have calculated how many years it will take for a divine battle god to reach the half-step divine emperor realm. Even if you have 100 million soul stones, no matter how fast you refine them, you will still need close to 2,000 years to refine all of them. 2,000 years, how long is that? As long as you have a 4 symbols everlasting godly pill, it will only take a moment. Now, think about it again. Which is more important, the soul stones or the 4 symbols everlasting godly pill? Shang Guanqiu did not panic because of this. Instead, he persuaded them emotionally and logically. After hearing this, everyone present nodded. Indeed, in terms of time, the 4 symbols everlasting godly pill was more important than the soul stones. Mu Tianyang smiled and said, "Let's take the lead." Don't. Hui quickly waved his hand. "What's wrong?" Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Hui smiled bitterly and said, "Didn't you hear about what happened last time? When Brother Jiang spoke, no one dared to compete." Mu Tianyang was slightly stunned and could not help but smile bitterly. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched fiercely. How long ago was it? How could he still remember? Madman looked at the 3 of them and suddenly said, "I bid 10 million. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 looked at Madman in astonishment. "What? You have a problem?" Madman glanced at the 3 of them. No. We just want to say that if you speak, no one will dare to raise the price. After all, who would dare to compete with you? Besides, if you raise the price to 10 million, who can bear it?" Qin Feiyang said bitterly. "Is this wrong? I want to deter them, lest they bid too high and let the treasure pavilion benefit." Wait, why do I feel that something is wrong? Looking at you, why do you look like you can't wait to bid a sky-high price? Madman frowned. No. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang quickly waved their hands. Of course, they wanted the price to be as high as possible, because they could get half of the soul stones. For example, if the price was 100 million, they could get 50 million. However, Madman did not know that the 4 symbols infinite divine pill was refined by them. They did not want Madman to know, because they could not control Madman. It would not be good if word got out. Then what are you guys talking about? Madman rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang and then looked at the auction house. The auction house was still dead silent, because many people recognized Madman's voice, especially the disciples of 9 Heavens Palace. Their fear of Madman was deeply rooted. Who would dare to make a move? However, the others, such as those who did not belong to 9 Heavens Palace, were somewhat restless. 11 million. Suddenly, someone in the auction house shouted, 12 million, 13 million, 14 million. It was like poking a hornet's nest. It was out of control. In the face of such temptation, Madman's deterrence seemed to be useless. The voices of bidding were like waves, wave after wave, echoing in the auction house. After a while, the price of the four symbols infinite divine pill was raised to a sky-high price of 50 million. It did not stop. The competition was still going on. We've made a fortune. We've made a fortune. Mu Tianyang sat on the chair, unable to hide the excitement in his heart. Even if it was only 50 million soul stones, he and Qin Feiyang could get 25 million soul stones. If they divided it equally, each of them could get 5 million soul stones. This was even faster than killing people and robbing them. Shang Guanqiu, who was on the high platform, was also full of smiles. This intense scene had far exceeded her expectations. Too slow, 90 million. Suddenly, an impatient voice sounded from VIP room number 6. 90 million. The people outside the auction house could not help but gasp. Who was this? He was so rich, increasing the price by 20 to 30 million. Qin Feiyang, Mu Tianyang, and Hua Yi also looked at VIP room number 6 in surprise. But because of the floor-to-ceiling windows, they could not see the people inside. However, when they looked at Madman, they found that he was also looking at VIP room number 6, frowning slightly. Qin Feiyang asked, "Senior brother, do you know who he is?" And the second on the heaven list, Yu Zijia. But in addition to the second on the heaven list, he has another title, the recognized number 1 alchemist in the 9 Heavens Palace. Madman said, "Yu Zijia." Qin Feiyang murmured, "I've heard of this name. It is said that this person has been talented since he was young, and he seems to be the last disciple of a big shot?" Boy said, "That's right. His master is the second elder of our 9 Heavens Palace." Madman said, "It's actually the second elder." Hua Yi's eyes trembled. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang were also shocked. The second elder was in existence second only to the great elder in the entire 9 Heavens Palace. To be able to be valued by the second elder and accepted as a disciple, how could he be an ordinary character? He is ranked second on the heaven list, so his cultivation must have reached the perfect divine lord realm. This 4 symbols infinite divine pill is useless to him. So why did he come here to join in the fun? Hua Yi raised his eyebrows. Is there even a need to say it? As an alchemist, encountering such a novel pill, he will definitely want to take it back and study it. Qin Feiyang said, "If he wants it, he has to get my permission." Madman coldly snorted and said, "I bid 100 million soul stones. No more, no less, just enough to raise the price by 1. Madman, what do you mean? Yu Zijia's voice immediately came out, bringing with it an extremely unhappy tone. If it was an increase of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions, it meant that Madman was determined to win. However, by increasing the price by 1, it was obvious that he was deliberately going against him. "Nothing. It's just fun," Madman said indifferently. Yu Zijia said angrily, "I don't think I have offended you before. Is there a need for you to do this?" "Yes. You haven't offended me, but your previous tone made me very unhappy." "What's too slow? Are you very arrogant?" "I really don't know who gave you the courage to be arrogant in front of me." Madman's face was full of contempt. "Fine, I won't fight with you. Do as you wish." Yu Zijia was angry, but he didn't have any temper. As a disciple of the heaven list, how could he not know Madman's temper? If he really went all out, there would be no end to it. "At least you know your place." Madman smiled proudly. "Humph." But another cold snort sounded, followed by a cold voice in the auction house. "Besides bullying others, what else can you do? 200 million. Feng Zihan, Qin Feiyang, and the other 2 looked at each other. They were all too familiar with this voice. It was the number 1 on the heaven list, Feng Zihan. This 4 symbols infinite divine pill actually alarmed 2 disciples of the heaven list. Moreover, listening to Feng Zihan's tone, it seemed that he was prepared to fight Madman to the end. "This stinking woman is here too?" Madman frowned. Mu Tianyang's eyes flashed and said, "Senior brother Madman, as a man, You can't lose to a woman. At the same time, he poked Qin Feiyang's back from behind. Qin Feiyang understood and nodded. Yes, yes, especially with so many people watching. If you admit defeat, how embarrassing would that be? A good man doesn't fight with a woman. Is there a need? Madman looked at the two of them and said, This. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other. This guy was actually scared. Madman, aren't you capable? Continue. But at this time, Yu Zijie's laughter rang out, his words full of schadenfreude. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang laughed. This Yu Zijie was really a godly assistant. As expected, upon hearing Yu Zijie's words, Madman immediately stood up and said angrily, You want to see what I can do? Fine. I'll fulfill your wish, stinking woman. Don't say that I bullied you. Get lost as soon as possible. 300 million. 400 million. Feng Zihan said without hesitation, his tone becoming colder and colder. Chapter 2094. Bitch, why are you so stubborn? Frenzy was a little angry. Wasn't this a cheap treasure? 500 million. Frenzy shouted. In front of a woman, a man can't admit defeat. He didn't know if other people thought this way, but Madman thought this way. 600 million. Feng Zihan's cold voice came out. This is crazy. The two of them are using the soul stones like divine crystals. The heavenless disciples of Nine Heaven Palace are really rich. Everyone's heart trembled. 500 to 600 million soul stones. Many people can't earn that much in their lifetime. But these two people didn't even blink their eyebrows in anger. To put it nicely, they were rich. To put it bluntly, they were prodigal. Shang Guanqiu was naturally excited. As a businessman, he liked to see such a scene the most. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang were also very excited. Because the higher Frenzy and Feng Zihan bid, the more soul stones they would get. But in front of Frenzy, they didn't dare to show it. They could only suppress the excitement in their hearts. Brother Jiang, Brother Mu, let's talk. Suddenly, Hua Yi's voice sounded in the minds of Qin Feiyang and Frenzy. Talk about what? The two were taken aback and looked at him in confusion. Shangguan Fenglan also told me a little about your cooperation with Shangguan Qiu. Hua Yi laughed secretly. Qin Feiyang had a bad premonition in his heart and said, If you have something to say, say it. Hua Yi secretly said, What I want to say is that you two can't be the only ones reaping the benefits. You, Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang suddenly had a trace of anger in their eyes. This guy was obviously trying to extort them. I don't want much. Each of you give me 50 million soul stones. Consider it as hush money. Hua Yi laughed. 50 million isn't much? Qin Feiyang and Frenzy were furious. Hua Yi's meaning was very obvious. If they didn't agree, he would tell Frenzy about them refining the four symbols infinite divine pill. Don't look at me so bitterly. We're friends and brothers. We'll go through thick and thin together, right? You've earned such a large sum of soul stones. You can't leave me with nothing, right? Hua Yi secretly chuckled. Qin Feiyang said angrily, If we were really friends and brothers, you wouldn't have threatened us like this. How is this a threat? It's a discussion, Hua Yi said, feeling wronged. Scram. Qin Feiyang glared at him and inwardly said, Fine, I'll give you 50 million, but you better keep your mouth shut. Of course. Hua Yi repeatedly agreed, his heart blooming with joy. He hadn't done anything, yet he had received 100 million soul stones. This was like a pie falling from the sky. He was dizzy from the smashing. As the three of them conversed, the price had already soared to 900 million. In the entire auction house, only the Madman and Feng Zihan were increasing the price. Everyone else was watching with their mouths agape. 1 billion. Finally, the price broke through the 1 billion mark. And the one who bid 1 billion was Feng Zihan. When she bid, she didn't hesitate at all. It was as if this 1 billion soul stones were nothing in her eyes. The entire audience was dead silent. 1 billion divine crystals was still acceptable, but 1 billion soul stones, even some of the rich people present were unable to compare. The madman also fell silent. It wasn't that he couldn't afford this price, but he really didn't want to benefit the treasure pavilion. When the sandpiper and the clam fought, the fisherman would benefit. He and Feng Zihan fought desperately, letting the treasure pavilion reap all the benefits. This deal wasn't worth it. But if he backed down now, he would definitely be ridiculed. What should he do? Now, he was riding a tiger and couldn't get off. Qin Feiyong glanced at the madman, his eyes flashing slightly. He swept his gaze across the auction house and sighed. Senior brother madman, as the saying goes, a good man doesn't fight with a woman. Why are you sulking with a woman? Moreover, even if you win against senior sister Feng Zihan today, I'm afraid you'll become the subject of ridicule. They'll say that you, a grown man, don't even have this bit of magnanimity to bully a woman. Qin Feiyong's voice was very loud, spreading throughout the entire auction house. What are you doing? So, you're not giving the madman a way out? Mu Tianyang secretly asked. Qin Feiyong secretly said, I'm giving him a way out. Why? Don't want to earn soul stones? Are you crazy? Mu Tianyang was a little angry. Who doesn't want to earn soul stones? But you also need to know how to be satisfied. You know the madman's temper. In the future, when he finds out that the four symbols infinite divine pill was refined by us, he will definitely not let it go. So, we can't go too far. No one to stop. Qin Feiyong secretly said. Mu Tianyang frowned. Although he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart, he couldn't deny that Qin Feiyong's consideration wasn't unreasonable. As expected, hearing Qin Feiyong's words, the madman immediately cast a grateful look at Qin Feiyong, then looked at the auction house and said righteously, That's right, I'm a grown man. How can I bully a woman? I admit defeat. As soon as these words came out, it attracted the praise of many people. You also need to have the ability to bully me. But suddenly, Feng Zihan's voice suddenly sounded. The madman raised his eyebrows, and anger immediately rose from his heart. Qin Feiyong hurriedly comforted him in a low voice. Senior brother, bear with it. Don't argue with her. The madman took a deep breath and said, I'm a man. It's only right for me to give in to you women. I don't need you to give in. Feng Zihan immediately said mercilessly, This damned woman. Why is she so insensible? The madman couldn't help but be angry. Qin Feiyong laughed. Senior sister, senior brother has already admitted defeat. Why are you still being so aggressive? Feng Zihan said indifferently, Do you have the right to speak? Qin Feiyong was stunned. Was this woman crazy? She would bite whoever she saw? Fine. He was meddling in other people's business. You guys continue. Shang Guanqiu looked meaningfully at the VIP room where Qin Feiyong and the others were and asked loudly, 1 billion spirit stones? Is there anyone else who wants to bid? The people present all cast disdainful looks at Shang Guanqiu. With such a high price, who would dare to bid? You should be content. Shang Guanqiu was also quite embarrassed. She coughed dryly and smiled. Then I will announce the result. The first four symbols infinite divine pill is won by Feng Zihan. Next, the second pill will be auctioned. The starting price is still 1 million, and there is no upper limit. A new round of competition had begun. But this time, the madman and Feng Zihan didn't bid again. But Yu Zijie became very active, but in terms of words, he seemed to be extra careful, for fear of making the madman unhappy again. 1 billion spirit stones. With Shang Guanqiu, each of us will get 250 million spirit stones. Minus Huayi's 50 million spirit stones. Damn, just the first four symbols infinite divine pill alone, we will get 200 million spirit stones. Qin Feiyong, I warn you, don't give the pill formula to the first elder. Mu Tianyang silently calculated, and when the final result came out, he was so excited that he was incoherent. Am I the kind of person who will cut off his own path to wealth? Qin Feiyong was speechless. Then who knows? I am not a roundworm in your stomach. How would I know what you were thinking? Mu Tianyang secretly said. Qin Feiyong shook his head helplessly. The madman looked for a while, then stood up and said, Zhang Haoyan, accompany me to a place. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He raised his head and looked at the madman suspiciously. Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi were also puzzled. The madman's eyes flashed and he whispered, Actually, Shangguan Fenglan gave me a mission this time. There is another mission? Qin Feiyong and the other two looked at each other and asked doubtfully, "What mission?" "A secret." The madman smiled mysteriously. "Just the two of us?" Qin Feiyong asked. "Yes." The madman nodded. "What about them?" Qin Feiyong pointed at Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi. The madman said angrily, "They are already so old. Do they still need you to take care of them? You are not their father." Qin Feiyong's mouth twitched and he said with a smile, "I want to, but they won't admit it." "Zhang Haoyan, you are too much." Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi immediately glared at Qin Feiyong. "Let's not talk about Hua Yi, let's talk about Mu Tianyang." Mu Tianyang and Qin Batian were people of the same generation. Therefore, in terms of seniority, Qin Feiyong was considered a grandchild in front of Mu Tianyang. He actually wanted to be his father. Uncle can tolerate it, but aunt can't. "Don't be long-winded, hurry up," the madman said, and took out a teleportation altar. "Wait. We came to the treasure pavilion under Feng Yuan's orders. Now that I am going out with you, does that count as leaving my post?" Qin Feiyong said. The madman said disdainfully, "With this old man here, what can he do to you?" Qin Feiyong was a little hesitant. Now that he was working in the resource hall, he couldn't make any mistakes. Otherwise, he would be caught by Feng Yuan. With Feng Yuan's means, even if it was just a small mistake, he could cause a lot of trouble for you, let alone a big mistake. "Why are you so wishy-washy? Although this mission was given to me by Shangguan Fenglan, the person behind it is the Great Elder. What can Feng Yuan do to you?" The madman said angrily. "So it's the Great Elder? Then I am relieved." Qin Feiyong nodded and looked at Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi with a smile. "The mission given to us by Feng Yuan, you guys do as you see fit?" "Understood. I also want to experience this Yuzijia's means." Mu Tianyang smiled playfully. Qin Feiyong glanced at the VIP room where Yuzijia was. His eyes flashed and he exhorted, "Don't go too far. After all, he is the second elder's disciple." "Do I need you to remind me?" "Get lost, get lost." Mu Tianyang waved his hand impatiently. Qin Feiyong turned to look at the madman and said with a smile, "Let's go." The madman's resurrection altar. The two jumped up one after another, and then disappeared from the sight of Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang. Hui asked suspiciously, "Brother Mu, this madman is so mysterious. What is his mission?" "How would I know? Aren't you very familiar with Shangguan Fenglan?" "Why don't you ask her?" Mu Tianyang said. Hua Yi's body stiffened and he smiled. "Forget it. Let's play with Yuzijia. Anyway, the soul stones were given to us by Feng Yuan. It doesn't matter how much we waste." "No temper." Mu Tianyang looked at Hua Yi with disdain and then swept his gaze to the auction house. Although it was not as intense as before, the price of the second four symbols infinite divine pill had soared to 100 million. There were very few people bidding, because they did not want to offend Yuzijia. In the end, the price stopped at 150 million. No one competed with Yuzijia. Just when Yuzijia thought that this four symbols infinite divine pill was already in the bag, 200 million. But suddenly, Mu Tianyang opened his mouth. As he said before, the soul stones were given to them by Feng Yuan. He did not care about wasting them and increased the price by 50 million. Yuzijia's face changed on the spot. The atmosphere of the auction house also changed. Everyone's expression was extremely strange. What was going on with the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace? Why did they all like internal strife so much? Chapter 2095. Let's talk about Qin Feiyong and Madman. At this moment, the two of them arrived above a mountain. Qin Feiyong was very unfamiliar with this place and couldn't find the direction at all. There was no one below either. Ancient trees towered into the sky and beasts were everywhere. But the cultivation of these beasts wasn't strong. Most of them were at the initial and perfect war god level. It was very difficult to find a perfect war god level beast. What is this place? Qin Feiyong looked around and looked suspiciously at Madman. We haven't arrived yet. Madman opened another altar. Qin Feiyong jumped up with a stomach full of doubts. The next moment, they appeared in the sky above a vast desert. The wind whistled, yellow sand flew all over the sky, and the temperature was extremely hot. Madman didn't say anything, and activated another legendary altar. We haven't arrived yet? Qin Feiyong was stunned. How far was Madman going to go? Next. The bewilderment in Qin Feiyong's heart grew stronger. Madman continued to activate altars and had activated more than a dozen altars. But looking at Madman's expression, it seemed that they hadn't reached their destination yet. Senior brother, where exactly are we going? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. He remembered that he had activated more than a dozen altars from the land of the undead to Sky Dragon City. Could it be that Madman was going to a place even further than the land of the undead? After activating a few more altars, the two of them arrived above a river. The river was more than a dozen meters wide, and the rolling water made a deafening sound. And dozens of miles away from the riverbank, there were more than a dozen villages of various sizes scattered. Qin Feiyong glanced around and judged the overall strength of those villages. The strongest person was a war saint. The weakest ones were even warriors and martial masters. Compared to Heavenly Dragon City, the spiritual energy of the world was worlds apart. Obviously, this place was located in a remote place in the northern region. Madman didn't activate any more altars here. Qin Feiyong looked at him suspiciously and said, "Is this the destination?" "No." Madman shook his head. "Not yet." Qin Feiyong was stunned. "But it's not far," Madman said again as he looked to the west, his eyes flickering. Qin Feiyong also looked over. But in the west, other than the rolling, winding mountains and rivers, there was nothing special. The madman suddenly withdrew his gaze and took out 2 sets of black clothes from his cosmos ring. He threw one of them to Qin Feiyong. "What?" Qin Feiyong grabbed his clothes and asked suspiciously. "Change into it," Madman said as he took off the clothes with the flame pattern engraved on them and put on the black clothes. Qin Feiyong looked at Madman in astonishment. Not only were those clothes made of sackcloth, but they were also very shabby and dirty. They resembled the clothes worn by beggars. He lowered his head and carefully looked at the clothes lunatic gave him. They were also tattered and dirty. He placed it at the tip of his nose and sniffed it. There was even a faint sour smell. "Hurry up," Madman urged. "Okay." Qin Feiyong nodded and quickly took off his coat and changed into his clothes. Madman said, "Put away your cosmos ring too." Qin Feiyong quickly took off his cosmos ring and put it in his arms. Madman also took off his cosmos ring, then held his head with both hands and rubbed it hard. His neat long hair was immediately messed up. "How is it?" Madman looked at Qin Feiyong and asked. Qin Feiyong looked at Madman for a moment and said, "You have the temperament of a beggar." Heh. Madman grinned and raised his hands again. Without asking for Qin Feiyong's opinion, he directly made Qin Feiyong's long hair look like a chicken's nest. "Senior brother, what do you want to do?" Qin Feiyong was extremely depressed. "Don't talk nonsense, just follow me." After Madman finished speaking, he stepped out and landed on the bank of the river. Then he walked towards the village dozens of miles away. Qin Feiyong followed beside him and scanned the surroundings. There were also many fierce beasts in the surrounding forest, but their cultivation was the same as the people in the village. The strongest was only a battle saint. After a while, a village in front of them entered their sight. There were a total of 500 to 600 families in the village. There was a stream at the entrance of the village, and a dozen children were playing happily by the stream. Their ages ranged from 7 or 8 to 12 or 13, and their faces were filled with innocent smiles. Madman stood on a small hill and looked at the children from afar. He couldn't help but smile. Qin Feiyong on the side also missed this happy and worry-free life. "Senior brother, this isn't your home, right?" Qin Feiyong asked. "My home?" Madman was slightly stunned and speechless. "What are you thinking? This place has nothing to do with me. I just thought of my childhood when I saw those kids." "I see. Then can you tell me what we are doing here?" Qin Feiyong said. "Don't worry." Madman waved his hand and said, "Suppress your cultivation for me. Don't scare those children." Qin Feiyong was helpless. What was this person trying to do? The two suppressed their cultivation to the Battle Emperor level before walking towards the village. Look, there are 2 beggars." One of the children suddenly noticed Qin Feiyong and Madman and immediately shouted to his companions. The group of children immediately looked at Qin Feiyong and Madman. The oldest of them was about 13 years old. He looked at Qin Feiyong and Madman, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. He whispered, "Everyone, be careful." What? What are two beggars afraid of? The two children around 7 or 8 years old said. Idiot. There are even battle saint-level beasts in the forest ahead. They can pass through the forest alive and come to our village. How can they be beggars? The older boy said angrily and gently knocked on the heads of the two children. After all, with their age, they naturally knew more things than other children. It seems to make sense. The other children pondered for a while and nodded. Then they all became vigilant. Don't be afraid, uncle. We are just passing by. Madman walked over and looked at the children, revealing a smile that he thought was very amiable. Passing by? The group of children was stunned. Yes, 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 passing by. Madman nodded. One of the children pinched his nose and asked, Then where did you come from? Why are you so dirty? Even the disciples of the Heaven List are afraid of him, but now he is being despised by a few children. Qin Feiyong laughed secretly. Madman stared at Qin Feiyong and looked at the children, saying, We came from a village hundreds of miles away and have been in the mountains for several months. How can we not be dirty? Then what are you doing in the mountains? The group of children looked at him curiously. Madman smiled. Of course we are exploring and looking for treasures. Did you find any treasures? The group of children asked again. Madman laughed. There are some, but they are just ordinary herbs and can't be sold for much. I see. Then it must have been hard on you. Why don't you all wash up here and drink some water before you leave? Children were all innocent and naive. As long as one was not born with evil, it was easy to gain their trust. Can I? Madman glanced at the stream and asked. Of course. The children nodded. You little guys are really lovable, Madman said, and wanted to reach out and touch the head of a child. But the older boy suddenly raised his arm and slapped Madman's hand away, saying, Wash up and leave. This little guy is quite vigilant. Qin Feiyong muttered and looked at the boy. The boy was about 1.5 meters tall and handsome. Compared to the other children, he had the maturity of an adult. Wait. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. This boy's cultivation was actually a 3-star combat emperor. This must be a joke. A 12 to 13-year-old boy could actually cultivate to a 3-star combat emperor? How shocking was his talent? Could it be that this boy was Madman's target? He looked at Madman again. He was not angry at the boy's offense. Instead, he laughed and said, Boy, don't have such a bad temper. The boy glanced at Madman and then said to the other children, Let's go back to the village first. Okay. Immediately, the group of children followed behind the boy and ran back to the village. Madman did not care and jumped into the stream. Lying in the water, he looked at the boy's back and asked, Qin Feiyong, how is that boy? Very good. Qin Feiyong nodded. Can you only used very good to describe him? Back then, when I was 12 to 13 years old, I was only a combat king. His talent is better than mine, but this is not the main point. Madman said, Not the main point? Qin Feiyong was slightly startled and asked suspiciously, Then what is the main point? Madman squinted his eyes and said, The main point is that he has opened the door of potential. What? Qin Feiyong's pupil shrank and hurriedly asked, Which level did he open? The 4th level. Madman said, What? Qin Feiyong was in disbelief. Opening the 4th level of potential? Doesn't that mean that this boy has broken through the warrior realm, martial master realm, martial ancestor realm, and combat king realm? Madman said again. Moreover, he did not rely on the potential pill. He relied on his own ability. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong's mind rumbled. Relying on his own ability to break through the extreme realm? This was too shocking. Wait. Qin Feiyong suddenly realized an important point and looked at Madman in surprise. Madman raised the corner of his mouth and said, Are you wondering why I know about the potential pill and the potential pill? Qin Feiyong did not answer or deny it. You will know in the future. Madman smiled mysteriously. Qin Feiyong looked at Madman deeply and asked, So we came here this time for that child? Yes. That's not right either. Madman said. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang frowned. Why did it sound so contradictory? According to Shangguan Fenglan, this child's talent was not very good when he was young. It can even be described as mediocre, but then one day, he mysteriously disappeared. The villagers searched thousands of miles in order to find him. In the end, after about half a month, they finally found him at the edge of the land of Extreme West. It was from then on that the child's talent changed. In terms of talent alone, this child can definitely be ranked in the top 10 in the entire northern region. Madman said. Chapter 2096. The Far West Land? Qin Feiyang frowned. Madman said, the Far West Land is not far from here. It is one of the forbidden areas of the North region. I understand. The reason Shangguan Fenglan asked you to come this time is to investigate the reason for this child's talent transformation, Qin Feiyang said. That's right. Madman nodded. Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously, then how does Shangguan Fenglan know about this child's situation? One had to know. This place was close to 20 teleportation altars away from Nine Heaven Palace. And the North region was so big, and there were so many people. That child was obviously a low-key person. But how did Shangguan Fenglan know so clearly? You don't know. My Nine Heaven Palace has always been secretly looking for talents, especially those with especially good talent. And just half a year ago, someone from our Nine Heaven Palace happened to come here and heard about this child's situation. When Shangguan Fenglan received the message, she sent someone to investigate this child. But Madman couldn't help but frown when he said this. But what? Qin Feiyang asked. In the past half a year, Shangguan Fenglan sent a total of 12 law enforcers. But these people all disappeared after entering the Far West Land. Madman said. All disappeared? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Madman nodded and said, yes, none of them came back. They probably died in the Far West Land. Qin Feiyang asked, what are their cultivations? About the same as me. Madman said, I'll go. Qin Feiyang was secretly speechless and said angrily, then why did you ask me to do such a dangerous mission? Madman raised his eyebrows and said angrily, I'm taking care of you, understand? Taking care of me? I really can't tell. Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. Think about it. This child entered the Far West Land, and his talents seem to have changed. There must be some treasure hidden in the Far West Land. If you're lucky and we find it, then wouldn't it be yours? Madman said. I don't need it. Goodbye. Qin Feiyang shook his head and took out an altar without hesitation. Lunatic was an existence that surpassed a divine lord. As for the enforcers, their strength was similar to lunatics, which meant that they had surpassed a divine lord. Even experts surpassing the divine lord realm couldn't come back alive, let alone a mere perfect realm war god like him. Why don't you try? The madman stared at him with an unfriendly expression. Let's go then. Qin Feiyang said. Sure. However, the moment you leave, I will expose your identity. Madman smiled mockingly. Qin Feiyang's body stiffened. He looked at the madman helplessly. Can you just let me go? I just want to cultivate peacefully and then find my ancestor. I have nothing to do with the ancient world or your Nine Heaven Palace. No. The madman shook his head. There was no room for negotiation. Qin Feiyang glared at him. The madman ignored him. Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly. He put away the teleportation altar and sat beside the madman. He pondered for a while and said, since that young man went to the Far West Land, why don't we let him lead the way? According to Shangguan Fenglan, we don't know what happened to that young man. It is said that he was in a coma when he disappeared. The madman said, then how do we find him? Qin Feiyang frowned. That's why I brought you here. Aren't you very good at dealing with Feng Yuan? Help me think of a way. The madman said, what can we do? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Wait. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have thought of something. He frowned and said in surprise, is there such a possibility? The treasure we guessed might be in that young man's body? No. Shangguan Fenglan had already sent people to secretly observe the young man, but they didn't find anything. The madman shook his head. Then it seems that we can only start from this young man. Qin Feiyang pondered. Since he couldn't run away, he could only try his best. After a long time, Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of light. He asked, "Have you ever suspected that the young man might not have been in a coma when he disappeared?" "Not in a coma?" The madman was slightly stunned and frowned. "You mean, that young man is lying?" Qin Feiyang said, "We can't rule out this possibility. There is indeed such a possibility. But he's just a child. Why would he lie?" The madman was suspicious. Maybe it's because he knows that this is very important, or maybe someone is teaching him behind his back. In short, the most important thing is to find out whether he lied or not. Qin Feiyang said. "How?" the madman asked. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "I have a way, but I want to ask, what benefits can I get?" "Benefits? I helped you and Shangwanqiu earn 1 billion soul stones this time. Is it not enough?" The madman said angrily. Qin Feiyang was shocked. How did the madman know about this? The 4 symbols infinite divine pill. Only those idiots would believe that it was developed by some bullshit master. The madman sneered. "What else do you know?" Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. "Not much. But these pills, I know basically all of them," the madman said. Qin Feiyang was shocked. "You also have the pill formulas for these pills?" "I'm not an alchemist. What do I need these pill formulas for?" The madman pursed his lips. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead and said weakly, "If I had the ability, I would definitely kill you." The madman said disdainfully, "Unfortunately, you don't have the ability." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. He had never been so powerless before. Qin Feiyang said, "Since you want to follow my method, then there's no need to pretend anymore. Just enter the village." "Enter the village directly? Won't this seem like we're bullying the weak?" the madman said. "Big brother, how many times have you bullied the weak in Nine Heaven Palace? Now you're pretending to be a good person?" Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him, then jumped up and landed at the entrance of the village. "I am a good person. Otherwise, who knows how many times you would have died?" The madman muttered. He got up and rushed to Qin Feiyang's side, sending a sound transmission. "No matter what you do, I won't say a word. Just don't expose our identity as a disciple of Nine Heaven Palace." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. With that, the two stepped into the village. The group of children from before didn't run far. They were playing not far from the entrance of the village, and there were many women and old people in the village. Before, Qin Feiyang and the madman didn't enter the village. They had a very calm attitude and didn't even pay special attention to them. But now, when the two entered the village, the villagers immediately stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman with hostility. The older boy frowned. "Didn't I tell you to wash up and leave?" "Leave." The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted as he stepped in front of the boy. The boy immediately retreated in panic. "What do you want to do?" The adults in the village all had a change of expression as they quickly flew over. Boom. Qin Feiyang didn't want to waste his breath. His divine aura rolled out like a huge wave and instantly enveloped the entire village. "This is divine aura. You're a war god." The villagers panicked as they looked at Qin Feiyang with fear in their eyes. "Don't worry, I won't hurt you," Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Then, he stretched out his hand and the boy uncontrollably flew in front of Qin Feiyang. "Let me go," the boy roared, his eyes filled with unyielding. "I admire your gaze. However, the current you is still too weak." Qin Feiyang used grievance to imprison the boy. His hands formed a seal and a puppet seal quickly appeared. Immediately after, as Qin Feiyang waved his hand, the puppet seal entered the boy's head like lightning. A heart-wrenching pain suddenly spread out from the boy's sea of consciousness and engulfed his whole body. The boy howled in pain as his slightly immature face was directly distorted. After controlling the boy, Qin Feiyang didn't delay and immediately began to read the boy's memory. The boy's name was Long Tianyu, 13 years old. His parents died and he was raised by his grandfather. But 2 years ago, the boy's grandfather unfortunately lost his life under the claws of a fierce beast, so the boy was now an orphan. But the villagers were very good to him and took care of him like their own son. So in these 2 years, The boy had lived a very happy life, and a 13-year-old boy didn't have many memories. After about 100 breaths, Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly burst out a ray of light. In the boy's memory, he saw a gray castle. The castle was located on a glacier and exuded an extremely terrifying aura. And the time when the boy went missing was in that gray castle. What? All of a sudden, Qin Feiyang's body trembled as a deep disbelief climbed up his face. What's wrong? Madman stepped forward and asked. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and removed the puppet seal. He took a deep look at the boy and turned to look at Madman, saying, I know where it is, let's go. Madman was stunned for a moment before revealing an excited expression and quickly followed. As for the boy, looking at Qin Feiyang's back, his little face was pale. Although he didn't know what Qin Feiyang did to him, the pain from before made him feel as if his soul was being torn apart. It would be unforgettable for the rest of his life. Tianyu, are you okay? How do you feel? When Qin Feiyang and Madman left the village, the villagers immediately rushed to Long Tianyu with a face full of concern. Thank you, uncles, aunts, grandpa, grandma for your concern. I'm fine. Long Tianyu shook his head and looked at the back of Qin Feiyang and Madman. His hands slowly clenched together as he muttered, One day, I will definitely become an expert like them, outside the village, in the forest. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and didn't say a word along the way. The disbelief on his face also didn't dissipate for a long time. What exactly do you know? Madman frowned. Qin Feiyang stopped and pondered for a moment before raising his head to look at Madman, saying, That child didn't rely on his own ability to open the door of potential. What? Madman was extremely shocked. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, It's the potential pill and the potential pill. Impossible. Madman shook his head. I also think it's impossible, but this is what I saw from his memory. It can't be wrong. Qin Feiyang said. Chapter 2097. Even the people of Nine Heavens Palace and Treasure Pavilion didn't know about the existence of the potential pill and potential pill. It could be seen that in the entire ancient world, only he and Mu Tianyang had the recipe. But Long Tianyu had obtained these two pills in the far westland. This was such an unimaginable thing. The madman asked, What else did you see in his memories? Qin Feiyang said, A gray castle. When he went missing, he was in that castle. So you're saying that it was that ancient castle that caused his talent to change? The madman was surprised, and, from his memories, I saw that he saw a gray figure in the gray castle, but this figure was very blurry and I couldn't see his face clearly. Qin Feiyang said, Gray castle, gray figure. The madman muttered to himself as a cold light appeared in his eyes. If that's the case, Long Tianyu was really lying. Qin Feiyang's eyelids twitched. This guy couldn't be thinking of killing him, right? He hurriedly said, He's just a child. Is there a need to be so calculative? What? Why would I be calculative with a brat? I just admire this kid's guts. He actually dared to lie to someone from Nine Heavens Palace. But this matter is getting more and more interesting. Let's go. We'll immediately enter the far west land and find that gray castle. I want to see what the hell is hidden inside. The madman laughed. This. Qin Feiyang hesitated and said, I think we should report it to Shangguan Fenglan first. Why report it to her? The madman was suspicious. The gray castle isn't simple. It seems to have the ability to steal life and erode the soul. I'm worried that with our strength, we might not be able to stop it, Qin Feiyang said. It's fine. I'll protect you. The madman waved his hand and swept Qin Feiyang towards the west. Qin Feiyang could not help but smile bitterly. He knew that this madman would not listen to his advice. The land of Extreme West was the same as the Heavenly Dragon Sea. It was impossible to directly teleport in using altars, and it was also impossible to send messages to the outside world. In other words, once one stepped into the far west land, it was equivalent to stepping into a cage that was isolated from the rest of the world. As they got closer to the far west, the temperature gradually dropped. About half an hour passed. Finally, towering mountains and rivers entered their line of sight. The temperature here had already dropped to 5 or 6 degrees, and one could even see some snow in the mountains. At the top of one of the hills stood a broken stone tablet. The stone tablet was more than 10 meters tall. Below it were piles of dead branches and leaves. There were 4 ancient words engraved on it: the land of the far west. Qin Feiyang glanced at the stone tablet before turning to Madman and asking, "Have you been here before?" "No." Madman shook his head and said, "But I've heard a lot about it. It's said that it snows all year round and the environment is extremely bad." As he spoke, he raised his head and looked towards the depths of the land of the far west. He could vaguely see the land covered in snow. "Are you sure you don't want to inform Shangguan Fenglan?" Qin Feiyang asked. "You're not even afraid of Fengyuan. Why would you be afraid of this place where birds don't lay eggs?" Madman's face was full of disdain. "Big brother, is this a place where birds don't lay eggs? This is a forbidden area in the northern region. Those law enforcers who are as strong as you can't even come out alive, let alone us." Qin Feiyang was displeased. All right, I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you." Madman did not allow any explanation. He grabbed Qin Feiyang and rushed into the land of the far west. Qin Feiyang was helpless and could only point the way for Madman. After reading Long Tianyu's memories, he also knew the direction and location of the Gray Castle. As they went deeper, the snow on the ground became thicker and thicker. At first, they could still see some plants stubbornly growing in the snow, but in the end, the entire land became white. The temperature gradually dropped to dozens of degrees below zero. If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't be able to withstand such a low temperature for long. But Qin Feiyang and Madman, one was a perfect war god, an existence that surpassed the Divine Lord realm. So for now, they were not a threat to them. However, a doubt gradually rose in Madman's heart. He turned to Qin Feiyang and asked, "How did Long Tianyu find the Gray Castle?" Qin Feiyang said, "It was the Gray Castle that came to find him." "What?" Madman was stunned. According to his memories, when he was still mediocre, he wanted to enter the land of the far west to find opportunities and fortunes. Because the nearby villages have an ancient legend that there are countless miracles and treasures in the land of the far west. So, he wanted to try his luck. But when he entered the land of the far west, he couldn't withstand the cold and fainted. And just as he was about to freeze to death, the gray figure appeared and brought him to the castle, and taught him cultivation and battle arts. From then on, Long Tianyu treated the gray figure like a master and was respectful. Qin Feiyang said, "So that's how it is." Madman suddenly understood and asked, "Then Long Tianyu lied because the gray figure taught him?" "Yes. The gray figure told him not to reveal his information to anyone who asks," Qin Feiyang said. Madman pursed his lips and said, "So cautious. It doesn't seem like he's a good person." "I don't know if he's a good person or not, but his strength is definitely not ordinary," Qin Feiyang whispered with a trace of worry on his face. When he entered the land of the far west, he had an uneasy premonition in his heart. It was as if something bad would happen soon. Unknowingly, the two had already gone hundreds of thousands of miles into the land of the far west. The current temperature had already dropped to a few hundred degrees below zero. At a glance, it was all glaciers and snow. There was no sign of life at all. Qin Feiyang could already feel the coldness, but the temperature was still falling. Madman's speed was very fast. Even if Qin Feiyang activated the Xing character art and teleported, it was still less than 1/10 of his speed. 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Qin Feiyang didn't know how far they had gone into the land of the far west. In short, even he couldn't withstand the current temperature. His body was stiff and his face was pale. His hair, eyebrows, and skin were all covered in frost. Madman saw that the situation wasn't good and hurriedly used his divine power to form a large barrier to block the cold outside. Qin Feiyang whispered, "Fortunately, there are no beasts here. Otherwise, it would be difficult to move." "How can there be beasts in this damn place?" Madman said. However, before his voice faded, boom, a glacier collapsed in front of them, and snow flooded in all directions like a flood. The two were shocked. Roar. Accompanied by a deafening roar, a beast the size of a mountain rushed out of the snow. It was a frost ape. Its body was hundreds of feet tall. On its shoulders, there were 9 heads. Every head was like a small mountain. Their blood-red pupils flickered with savagery. How is this possible? Madman was dumbfounded. What's wrong? Qin Feiyong was surprised. Madman said in surprise, its cultivation is the same as mine. Half a step into the divine realm. The same as yours? Qin Feiyong's face couldn't help but turn pale. It didn't come out, but when it came out, it was a terrifying existence comparable to Madman. How could they continue? Because the appearance of the frost ape meant that there were no beasts in the land of the far west. On the contrary, the beasts here were even more terrifying than the ones in the Sky Dragon mountain range. The frost ape stood in front, its 18 eyes flashing with incomparable ferocity. Its ferocious aura shook hundreds of thousands of miles of glaciers. It shouted, "Human, this is a forbidden area. Leave quickly." Forbidden area? The madman came back to his senses and the corner of his mouth lifted. His aura erupted like a volcano and surged out. However, the frost ape's eyes were filled with disdain. "Damn, you dare to look down on me?" Seeing the frost ape's eyes, Madman couldn't help but be furious. He waved his hand, and his divine power roared as he pounced at the frost ape. The disdain in the frost ape's eyes became stronger. Boom! Suddenly, it waved its thick arms and punched at Madman's divine power. Accompanied by a loud explosion, the divine power was shattered by the frost ape's punch. Madman took a few steps back, his face pale. So strong? He stared at the frost ape in shock. In the past 6 months, there have been more than a dozen humans like you that entered the land of the far west. Their strength wasn't bad, but they all died in my hands. The frost ape sneered. A human like me? Madman paused. Qin Feiyong said in a deep voice, "Could it be the enforcers sent by Shangwan Fenglan?" "I'm afraid it's them," Madman muttered as he rubbed his forehead and sighed. "It seems that I underestimated the danger of the land of the far west. It's not too late to turn back." Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. He didn't want to come in. It wasn't that he was a coward, but because this matter had nothing to do with him. So there was no need to follow Madman and take the risk. "Turn back?" Madman sneered as he stared at the frost ape and said, "I'm afraid you found the wrong target this time. Qin Feiyong, go hide in the space divine item. I'll play with it." Madman licked his lips as fighting spirit boiled in his eyes. His body also emitted a terrifying aura. Qin Feiyong was helpless to the extreme. He originally wanted to persuade Madman to leave, but he didn't expect that it would arouse Madman's fighting spirit. It was basically hopeless to persuade him to leave. Forget it. Let this fellow do as he pleases. Qin Feiyong flashed and disappeared without a trace. Madman waved his hand, and the barrier blocking the cold current also collapsed. Voila! As soon as the barrier disappeared, the murderous aura around Madman turned into a blood-red wave that surged toward the frost ape. The void was destroyed and glaciers collapsed. The entire area immediately turned blood-red, as if it was the purgatory of Azura. In fact, one could even vaguely hear the roars of malicious spirits. The frost ape's pupils shrank. How many massacres did he have to go through to have such a terrifying murderous aura? It decisively stopped underestimating him. Boom! Its aura was released, and its ferocious aura shook the world. As it waved its claw, a wave of divine power roared in the sky and blasted toward Madman's murderous aura. Boom! In an instant, divine power and murderous aura collided. In an instant, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The void millions of miles away shattered as if it was the end of the world. Chapter 2098. Roar. At the same time, painful roars could be heard from the glacier behind the madman. The madman paused for a moment before turning his head to look behind him. He saw one beast after another roaring from the bottom of the glacier. They weren't the companions of the 9 ice apes. There were all kinds of beasts. As soon as these ferocious beasts appeared, they fled in panic without looking back. Qin Feiyong, who was in the castle, also noticed this scene. Only now did he understand that it wasn't that there weren't any beasts on the way here. It was that these beasts were hiding under the glacier and didn't dare to come out after sensing the madman's aura. And now, the moment the madman and the 9 ice apes fought, these beasts felt the danger and naturally didn't dare to continue hiding. This also meant that the Far West was more terrifying than they imagined. Compared to the dozen humans before, it's really different. The 9 ice ape looked at the madman and muttered, but then a trace of disdain appeared in its eyes. Boom. Taking advantage of the fact that the madman's attention was on the other beasts, it took a step forward and stomped towards the madman like a giant. Beasts also know how to sneak attack. The madman was stunned. Then he raised his arm and punched out. Boom. His punch landed on the sole of the 9 ice ape's foot. Compared to the mountain-like feet of the 9-headed frost ape, his fist was like an insignificant speck of dust. However, the power of his punch sent the 9 ice ape flying, and the sole of the ice ape's foot was torn open. The 9-headed frost ape let out a pained roar and ruthlessly smashed into an ice mountain. The ice mountain was tens of thousands of feet high, but under the impact of the 9 ice apes, it was instantly flattened like a dead tree. How is this possible? The 9 ice ape climbed up from the ice and looked at the madman in disbelief. As a beast, its body was naturally stronger than a human's. And living in such a cold place all year round, the toughness and strength of its body would gradually increase. So, whether it was its body or strength, it had absolute confidence. But it didn't expect that it would lose to a human at this moment. I said, "You found the wrong opponent this time. I can't be compared to those trash." The madman's black hair fluttered in the wind. His entire body emitted a battle intent that shook the heavens. Whoosh! He crossed the void with a single step, and his fist shone with divine light. Like a shooting star, he punched out. The 9 frost apes were unconvinced. They also swung their strong arms and punched out. Rumble! The 2 fists collided. A wave of destructive energy spread out in all directions with them as the center. Crack! Following closely, an ear-piercing sound echoed throughout the area. The 9 frost apes immediately retreated in panic. As he retreated, he howled in pain. Its arm had been fractured. 2 ghastly white bone spurs pierced through his flesh and skin. Blood gushed out like a fountain. What the hell is going on? How can a human's strength be so strong? Yizichin muttered to himself. The 9 heads and the 18 eyes were all filled with shock at this moment. That's it? I haven't even used 1% of my strength yet. The madman walked step by step towards the 9 frost apes. His footsteps were steady and powerful. The void collapsed one after another. His aura shook the heavens. The 9 frost apes revealed a look of fear. He hadn't even used 1% of his strength, and he was already so powerful? Then how terrifying was this person's peak strength? So, suddenly, it glanced around, then turned around and fled deeper into the forest. The madman was stunned. It hadn't even started, and it was already running away? How boring. He pursed his lips and withdrew his aura. He looked around and said indifferently, "Come out." Not long after his voice fell, Qin Feiyang appeared beside the madman. The madman condensed another divine power barrier to isolate the cold current outside. Qin Feiyang smiled. "You haven't had enough yet, right? Isn't that nonsense?" The madman rolled his eyes. This level of battle wasn't even enough for him to warm up. "Don't worry. There will definitely be stronger beasts behind." However, at this point, Qin Feiyang hesitated. The madman looked at him and said impatiently, "If you have something to say, then say it." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Look, facing a beast of this level, I can't help at all. Instead, I will be a burden to you. Less nonsense. Since you've boarded my pirate ship, don't think about getting off." Before Qin Feiyang finished, the madman gave Qin Feiyang a mocking smile. Then he forcefully brought Qin Feiyang and continued to fly deeper. Qin Feiyang was furious. To be honest, facing a beast of this level, his cultivation wasn't much help. He couldn't understand why the madman was dragging him along. About 100 breaths passed. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's expression changed. He stared at the glacier ahead as if he had seen a devil. His eyes were filled with fear. The madman was also slightly taken aback. But then, His eyes were filled with excitement. "He is indeed a battle maniac," Qin Feiyang muttered. The glacier ahead wasn't some rare treasure. It was a frost ape. Moreover, it was the nine-headed frost ape that fought the madman before. Its broken arm was still bleeding. Those 9 pairs of millstone-sized eyes were all suffused with a terrifying, ferocious light. But this wasn't the reason why Qin Feiyang was terrified. The real reason was that behind the 9-headed frost ape, there were another 15 frost apes. They also had 9 heads. Their size was the same as the 9-headed frost ape from before, and the aura they emitted was also the same. In other words, they were all super existences that surpassed perfect monarch god. "Senior brother, you play slowly. I'll leave first." Qin Feiyang swallowed his saliva. After saying that, he went straight into the castle. What a joke. Adding the 9 frost apes from before, there were a total of 16 of them. With such a terrifying lineup, if he stayed outside, only death would await him. "You're scared to the point of pissing your pants. Really useless." The madman snorted. Qin Feiyang, who had entered the castle, heard the madman's words and was so angry that his nose was about to become crooked. Which perfect war god wouldn't run when they saw 16 half-step monarch god beasts? Not to mention a perfect war god. Even a perfect monarch god could only run at the sight of them. "It's him. Brothers, let's kill him together." The injured 9-headed frost ape let out a resentful roar and charged at the madman with a terrifying aura. The other 15 frost apes also roared and charged at the madman. "If you can force me to take a step back, I'll admit defeat." The madman crossed his arms and stood in the air. He looked at the 16 frost apes with disdain. Arrogant. The 16 frost apes roared like thunder. They waved their mountain-like fists and smashed at the madman. The madman sneered. He clenched his fists and charged forward. Bang, bang, bang. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Accompanied by loud sounds, the 16 frost apes were sent flying in less than 5 breaths. Their arms were all broken. All of them grimaced in pain. But more than that, they were terrified. Especially the 15 frost apes that came out later. They were terrified to the extreme. This power, this physical body. Why was he so ridiculously strong? They didn't believe it when they heard the first frost ape talk about the madman. How could a human's physical body and power compare to these beasts? But the result was even more terrifying than what the frost ape said. Inside the castle, Qin Feiyang's face was also filled with shock. Last time when they sparred on Turtle King Island, he already knew that the madman's physical body had been tempered. It wasn't a problem for him to crush a middle-grade divine weapon with his bare hands. But he found that the madman's performance this time was even stronger than last time. It was probably comparable to a high-grade divine weapon. In other words, the madman now could probably crush a high-grade divine weapon with his bare hands. He might even dare to fight against a perfect divine weapon. However, it hadn't been long since the last time they sparred. How did he improve so much? Was the madman hiding his strength from the beginning? Or could it be that he had some kind of special method that allowed him to temper his body? Outside, the madman really didn't take a step back. He was like Mount Tai. His black hair fluttered in the wind. The blood-red divine power around him was like a tide that rolled in the void. Looking from afar, he was like a demon god. His killing intent was shocking. Just this bit of skill? Looking at the 16 frost apes, his expression was filled with contempt. Roar. These words completely enraged the 16 frost apes. They faced the sky and roared, shaking the surroundings. Following closely, waves after waves of heavenly energy poured out and turned into waves of cold air that drowned out the sky. Immediately, the snowstorm in this area was even more intense than before. The cold currents were bone-chilling. A layer of ice appeared on the madman's body. If Qin Feiyang was outside right now, there was no doubt that he would turn into an ice sculpture and freeze to death. Divine technique? The madman muttered. The ice on his body was getting thicker and thicker. Even his 4 limbs were starting to go numb. If he just stood there without moving, even with his cultivation, he would definitely be completely frozen in less than 3 breaths of time. Gotcha. The madman was trapped in the cold current, so he was naturally clear of this point. Waves of killing intent broke out of his body. The ice on his body began to crack slowly, accompanied by a series of ear-piercing cracking sounds. What? We can't freeze him. Just how strong is the killing intent in his body? The 16 frost apes were shocked when they saw this scene. They had never seen a human with such a shocking killing intent. Not enough, far from enough. You don't even have the qualifications to let this father warm up. All of a sudden, the madman roared and the ice on his body shattered. He jumped up and landed on the head of one of the frost apes. Boom! He stomped down. With a cracking sound, one of the frost ape's heads exploded like a watermelon. Flesh and blood splattered. The surrounding ice and snow instantly turned blood red. The remaining 8 heads of the frost ape howled miserably. His heart was also filled with fear that could not be dispelled. This human was like a god descending to the mortal world. He was so strong that it made them despair. Chapter 2099. Run! The frost ape that had appeared first suddenly let out an explosive roar, turned around, and began to flee. The frost ape that had one of its heads crushed, and the other 14 frost apes didn't dare to stay any longer and fled for their lives. This time, we won't be as lucky as before. The madman chuckled and waved his hand, sending out a ray of golden light. The ray of golden light was like a strand of hair, but its lethality was extremely terrifying. Whoosh! The golden light streaked across the sky like lightning, shattering one head after another. The 16 frost apes were all killed in less than 10 breaths. The mountain-like corpse fell into the snow, and blood flowed out like a small stream. Terrifying. Inside the ancient castle, Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. Last time, it was this ray of golden light that broke the blood flash formed by the kill formula. But what was this ray of golden light? He still couldn't figure it out. Outside, the madman casually clapped his hands, and the golden light disappeared into his body. Then he looked into the void and said, "Did you see that? With me here, you'll be fine." Qin Feiyang appeared beside Madman and praised him without holding back. Impressive, impressive. The madman smiled proudly and pointed at the 16 frost apes. Take these corpses. Qin Feiyang paused and asked suspiciously, "Why should I take their corpses?" Nonsense. Of course, to the resource hall to exchange for soul stones. These beasts are all half-step paragon gods. Whether it's their blood or bones, they are all very valuable. Even if you don't lack soul stones, you can sell them to the treasure hall. You can sell them for a sky-high price, the madman said. I see. Qin Feiyang's heart moved. He took out an unused interspatial ring and put the 16 frost ape corpses inside. How dare you? How dare you hurt my subjects? But just as Qin Feiyang put away the interspatial ring, an angry roar came from the void in front of him. Merely that voice contained an oppressive might that caused Qin Feiyang to feel fear. Qin Feiyang hurriedly raised his head to look. Immediately, he saw a golden flowing light breaking through the air with a speed that was hard to catch with the naked eye. What followed was a monstrous divine power. This divine power had already surpassed the 16 frost apes. The madman was also shocked and shouted, "Damn! It's a beast emperor that just became a paragon god. Run!" Hearing this, Qin Feiyang didn't hesitate to turn around and escape. You're too slow. Madman grabbed Qin Feiyang and used a supplementary divine art, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Where do you think you're going? However, the golden light was not shaken off by them. Instead, it was getting closer and closer to them. In other words, the speed of the golden light was even faster than Madman's. Why are we so? Madman angrily glanced at the golden flowing light behind him. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Don't you have a spatial divine item that divine sense can't capture? Let's go in and hide." This, Qin Feiyang was a little hesitant. The madman urged, "Hurry up. If you don't go in, I won't be able to protect you." Qin Feiyang let out a breath. With a thought, he brought the madman into the black tortoise realm. Swish! Just as the two of them disappeared, the golden stream of light swept over and appeared in the void. It was a golden ape, but compared to the 16 frost apes, it was much smaller. It was about the size of an adult, about 178 meters tall, and only had one head. The golden fur on his body was like satin, but at this time, its golden eyes were filled with anger. Divine sense surged and covered all directions. Damn humans, do you think you'll be safe by hiding in a spatial divine item? It uttered a roar. Wisps of golden god force burst out of its body and swept across the place like a surging tide. Millions of void, earth, and mountains were all shattered. This world turned into chaos, as if it was the beginning of the world. But soon, the golden ape frowned. If it was a spatial divine item, then even if it was shattered, there should be fragments. However, his divine sense hadn't detected anything. What was going on? Inside the Black Tortoise realm, the madman stood in the sky above the herb field and looked around curiously. Qin Feiyong looked at the golden ape in the image with a worried expression. The golden ape was too strong. He was worried that the Black Tortoise realm might not be able to withstand it, but it seemed that he was worried for nothing. The Black Tortoise realm didn't shake at all. Another moment passed. Seeing that the Black Tortoise realm was still fine, Qin Feiyong finally let out a sigh of relief. Qin Feiyong, in the future, it's best not to provoke experts at the level of paragon gods. But at this moment, an angry voice sounded in Qin Feiyong's mind. Qin Feiyong was stunned. This seemed to be the voice of the little boy. What's wrong? He asked in his mind. Do you think the Black Tortoise realm is really fine? Let me tell you, it was I who used the origin power to stabilize the Black Tortoise realm, preventing it from being destroyed. The little boy said angrily. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong was shocked. In any case, with the current strength of the Black Tortoise realm, it can't directly clash with experts at the level of paragon gods. Otherwise, it will consume a large amount of origin power every time. The little boy said. In other words, the Black Tortoise realm isn't really incapable of clashing head-on with experts at the level of paragon gods? Qin Feiyong asked. If it's really a head-on clash, the Black Tortoise realm can still withstand it. However, it's better to avoid this kind of thing as much as possible, because the consumption of origin power will affect the growth of the Black Tortoise realm. The little boy explained. Qin Feiyong said, Then when will the Black Tortoise realm be able to fight with paragon gods without any scruples? Judging from the current growth rate of the Black Tortoise realm, it shouldn't be long. I'll tell you when the time comes. The little boy said. Okay, I'll try my best to avoid it in the future, Qin Feiyong secretly said. The little boy responded and then didn't say anything else. And outside, the golden ape roared angrily and also disappeared into the depths of the far west. Qin Feiyong exhaled. He finally avoided this calamity. Wait, origin power, rule power. Is there a difference between these two things? Qin Feiyong frowned again. Suddenly, Madman's doubtful voice sounded in Qin Feiyong's ears. Qin Feiyong, is this really a spatial divine item? Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned, turned his head to look at Madman and nodded. Of course. Then why are there so many people and beasts? It feels no different from the outside world. Madman frowned. Qin Feiyong's pupil shrank slightly. This person's insight was really terrifying. He smiled and said, The people here are basically the clansmen of my subordinates. Do you think I'm stupid? How can there be so many clansmen in that family? Madman said angrily. Don't move. In my world, a slightly larger tribe has millions of clansmen, Qin Feiyong said. So it's like this. Madman nodded in realization. Seeing Madman still looking thoughtful, Qin Feiyong immediately realized that he couldn't let this person continue to stay in the Black Tortoise realm. The Black Tortoise realm wasn't comparable to others. Even the alchemy scripture, the 6-word divine formula, and the ancient castle couldn't be compared to the Black Tortoise realm, because the Black Tortoise realm was an independent small world. Once exposed, it would definitely attract countless people to snatch it. Even the people of Nine Heavens Palace would probably force him to hand over the Black Tortoise realm. That monkey has already left. Let's go out. After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he didn't wait for Madman to react and left the Black Tortoise realm. The bone-piercing cold current surged over. A layer of ice immediately appeared on Qin Feiyong's body. What a burden. Madman glanced at Qin Feiyong and shook his head. He formed a divine power barrier to isolate the cold current. After Qin Feiyong melted the ice, he said angrily, I am a burden to begin with. Can you please let me go back? No. Madman shook his head. Who did I offend? Qin Feiyong was extremely angry. Don't be angry. It's just a joke. Let's go. Madman chuckled and continued forward with Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong stared at Madman and looked ahead. His expression suddenly changed and he hurriedly said, Wait, you still dare to go like this? Aren't you afraid of meeting that monkey again? Then how do you think we should go? Madman was suspicious. Qin Feiyong said, Nonsense, of course we'll take a detour. That's fine. Madman thought for a moment and nodded. Then, he led Qin Feiyong away from the route and flew to the left. After a while, seeing that there was no danger, Qin Feiyong couldn't help but ask curiously, Is Paragon God the realm above Divine Lord? Yes. Madman nodded. Qin Feiyong said, Is it the same as War God and Divine Lord? Yes. It's all elementary, minor, major, perfection, and perfection, Madman said. What about above Paragon God? Qin Feiyong said. Above Paragon God, Madman muttered to himself and shook his head. Even I can only look up to experts of that level. Don't even think about it. Break through to Divine Lord first. Qin Feiyong curled his lips and said, I don't think you're that good. You can only run away when you meet a beast at elementary Paragon God. Say that again? Madman's body stiffened and he immediately stopped in the void, staring at Qin Feiyong with hostility. Am I not telling the truth? Qin Feiyong looked at Madman without fear. What do you know? Do you know the difference between half-step Paragon God and elementary Paragon God? It's like the difference between false God and war God. Without some heaven-defying means, it's impossible to cross this threshold. Of course, it's not that I don't have the ability, I just find it troublesome. Madman said, Keep bragging. Qin Feiyong sneered. Bragging? Madman was furious and said, If you have the guts, then make a bet with me. How? Qin Feiyong asked. I'll go find that damn monkey right now. If I can't beat it, I'll listen to your orders from now on. I'll do whatever you want me to do. But if I win, you'll give me that spatial divine item. Do you dare to bet? Madman provoked. Chapter 2100. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong couldn't help but be tempted. This madman's strength was obvious to all. It was a great temptation to listen to him in the future. However, he really didn't dare to gamble, because Madman was too confident. And he also knew that Madman's strength was far more than this. Although the temptation was great, the price was also great. If Madman really defeated the Golden Ape, then he would have to give the Black Tortoise World to Madman. This wasn't a good deal. Don't be like a woman. Just say it. Do you dare to gamble? Madman said. Ha! Qin Feiyong laughed dryly. Senior brother, I was just joking. You took it seriously. Joking? If you don't dare, then you don't dare. Why find an excuse? Madman's face was full of disdain. Qin Feiyong smiled and quickly changed the topic. He asked curiously, How long does it take to cultivate from a half-step Paragon God to a beginner Paragon God? How long? Madman murmured and continued to move forward with Qin Feiyong. After a long time, he shook his head. It depends on one's talent. Those with good talent can take hundreds of thousands of years. Those with average talent can take millions or even tens of millions of years. Those with good talent need hundreds of thousands of years? Qin Feiyong was dumbstruck. He asked, Then what if we have enough soul stones? That's a different story. If there's a time array, then it's even better. In short, once you break through to the War God realm, you will be in seclusion for hundreds or thousands of years. When you break through to the Monarch God realm and Paragon God realm, you will be in seclusion for even longer. Tens of thousands of years is common. Just like the 9 elders of our Empyrean Palace. From the time I entered Empyrean Palace until now, I have only seen them a few times. Madman sighed. Tens of thousands of years. Qin Feiyong was dumbfounded. Because of the ancient castle, let alone thousands or tens of thousands of years, he hadn't even tried to cultivate for decades. In his opinion, it was too long. It was too boring. Cultivating in seclusion all day, what fun was there in life? The path of cultivation is like this. The higher the realm, the more boring it gets. Great Elder kept urging me to go into seclusion, but I just wasn't willing. Madman pursed his lips. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, "How long has it been since you became a half-step paragon god?" "How long?" Madman pondered for a moment and said, "Probably 7 to 8,000 years." 7 or 8,000 years. Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. When Madman broke through to the half-step supreme god realm and dominated the Nine-Heaven Palace, he wasn't even born yet. In that case, this fellow was also an antique. Wait. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang frowned. Madman had broken through to half-step paramount god 7 or 8,000 years ago. At that time, it seemed to be the time when the ancestor's reputation was rising. And it was at that time that the ancestor went missing. In other words, when the ancestor entered Nine-Heaven Palace, he met Madman. When Qin Feiyang thought of this, he was immediately bewildered. He had always thought that Madman was a junior in front of the ancestor. He had never seen the ancestor in person, only heard rumors. However, he never expected that Madman and the ancestor were from the same time period. The meaning was completely different. Because if Madman was only a junior, then he definitely didn't know much about the ancestor's deeds. After all, the rumors were more or less untrue. But as people from the same time period, he definitely knew the ancestor's background. In other words, this Madman knew everything about the ancestor. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman and asked with a pleading tone, "Senior brother, can you tell me why my ancestor disappeared?" Madman glanced at him, shook his head, and sighed. "After thousands of years, if I had cultivated seriously, I would have broken through to the half-step supreme god realm by now." Qin Feiyang couldn't help but be angry. "I'm asking you a question. You ask me and I have to answer you? How much face do you have?" Madman's face was full of disdain. Qin Feiyang was infuriated, but a sense of powerlessness soon followed. If it were anyone else, he could think of a way to force the other party to say it. But this Madman, although he looked unrestrained and frivolous, was actually a scheming old fox. Coupled with his terrifying strength, he really couldn't do anything. Roar. The following journey was not as smooth as the beginning. From time to time, a ferocious beast would run out, and their strength was extremely terrifying. The weakest was half-step supreme god. Half-step supreme god ferocious beasts were also common. This extreme west has really exceeded my expectations. The degree of danger should be comparable to the depths of the heavenly dragon sea. Madman had long stopped underestimating the place. His mind was highly focused, and he would immediately flee if there was any movement. Just as he said, it wasn't that he couldn't win, but that he was afraid of trouble. After all, once he fought with a ferocious beast, it would attract other nearby ferocious beasts. Time flew by. The sky gradually darkened. The night in the far west was covered by dark clouds, and the moon couldn't be seen. Everywhere was pitch black. Qin Feiyang and Madman became more and more careful. Roar. Beast roars sounded in the night sky from time to time. At first, it was nothing, but late at night, the two of them sensed a ferocious beast even more terrifying than the golden ape in the glacier ahead. "This won't do. We have to go around," Qin Feiyang said solemnly. Its aura was even more terrifying than the golden apes. Without a doubt, the ferocious beast hiding under the glacier was definitely a half-step supreme god. Madman didn't dare to be careless and immediately led Qin Feiyang around the glacier ahead. But soon, the two of them stopped again. Madman's brows were tightly furrowed. Qin Feiyang had a look of fear, because no matter how they went around, they would always encounter ferocious beasts stronger than half-step supreme god. "Looks like we have to stop here." Qin Feiyang was silent for a moment, then turned to look at Madman, because it was obvious that they had already entered the depths of the far west. The ferocious beasts they would encounter next would probably be at the half-step supreme god level. Unless they had absolute confidence in their strength, they wouldn't be able to continue. Madman scanned the front, his face full of unwillingness. Suddenly, His eyes lit up as he said to Qin Feiyang, "Why don't we use the spatial divine item to travel? You want to go in so badly?" Qin Feiyang frowned angrily. Madman smiled and said, "We've already come this far. Wouldn't it be a pity to give up halfway?" Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly. Madman said, "Don't dilly-dally. Quickly take me to your spatial divine item." "Go to my spatial divine item?" Qin Feiyang was taken aback and frowned. "Why? Don't you have it?" "This." Madman's expression stiffened as he smiled embarrassedly. "I really don't." Qin Feiyang didn't say anything. He just sneered at Madman. Did he think he was an idiot? How could a half-step supreme god not have a spatial divine item? "I'm not lying to you. I used to look down on spatial divine items," Madman said. "Look down on?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "That's right. Only a coward who's afraid of death would prepare a spatial divine item and be ready to escape at any time," Madman said. "What kind of logic is that? Who said that a spatial divine item is for escaping? There are other uses for it, okay?" Qin Feiyang was speechless. All right, hurry up," Madman urged with an awkward expression. "You really don't have a spatial divine item?" Qin Feiyang still didn't believe it. Who didn't know the benefits of a spatial divine item? This guy definitely wanted to enter the Black Tortoise world again and take the opportunity to observe it. "I really don't. If you don't believe me, use your divine sense to search. If you find it, I'll give it to you," Madman said. "Really?" Qin Feiyang asked. Come. Madman opened his hands and didn't have the slightest intention of resisting. "I still don't believe it." Qin Feiyang muttered and released his divine sense, pouncing towards Madman. "You're really searching?" Madman's face darkened. A divine sense appeared and blocked Qin Feiyang's divine sense. "Nonsense. You're the one who asked me to search. Why? Are you feeling guilty now?" Qin Feiyang sneered. "Who doesn't have a secret? I really don't have a spatial divine item. Why don't you believe me?" Madman said powerlessly. "Don't give me that." Qin Feiyang sneered. Now, he naturally wouldn't believe it. Madman was instantly annoyed and said angrily, "Brat, don't go too far. If you provoke me, I'll really announce your identity." "You." Qin Feiyang was furious in his heart. Other than threatening him, what else could he do? As a 7-foot man, isn't he ashamed? "Hurry up," Madman shouted impatiently. "I really owe you in my previous life." Qin Feiyang glared fiercely at Madman and then helplessly brought him to the Black Tortoise world. "That's more like it. Perform well like this. Maybe if I'm happy, I'll tell you everything about Qin Badian and Lu Zhengyang." Madman stood in the sky and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smug face and smiled. "Who are you trying to fool?" Qin Feiyang sneered and controlled the Black Tortoise world, silently shuttling through the night sky. "This spatial divine item, the more I look at it, the stranger it becomes." Madman crossed his arms and looked at the Black Tortoise world, muttering thoughtfully. "Don't let him see anything." Qin Feiyang muttered to himself and was quite worried. In fact, he had thought of bringing Madman to the castle. But the castle couldn't be exposed, because the castle's time laws were easier to distinguish. Once they entered the castle, Madman would definitely be able to sense the abnormality of time, which would be even more troublesome. Moreover, alchemy scripture, 6-word divine art, fire lotus, mermaid princess, and others were all in the castle. He really didn't dare to take this risk. Sure enough, it was as expected. The deeper they went, the stronger the beasts they encountered. As for how strong they were, Qin Feiyang couldn't judge, because he still didn't understand the existence of the Paragon God level. However, just the aura emitted by those beasts made him feel a fatal threat. In this place, if one didn't have enough strength or protection, they would definitely die. Around late at night, Qin Feiyang gradually discovered that the aura of the beasts seemed to be getting less and less. What was going on? Wait. He suddenly remembered the information he got from Long Tianyu's memory. Chapter 2101. According to Long Tianyu's memories, after entering the hinterland of the far west, there would be fewer and fewer beasts. Because the Grey Castle was in the hinterland. And because of the existence of the Grey Castle, the entire hinterland was filled with a strange power that could steal life and erode the soul. It was because of this power that the beasts of the far west did not dare to enter the hinterland. Even if they entered the hinterland, they did not dare to stay for long. In other words, it was very likely that they had already entered the hinterland. Madman. Qin Feiyong turned his head to look at Madman, and the anger in his heart immediately rose. Not long after this guy entered the Black Tortoise world, he took out an armchair and lay on it, leisurely taking a nap. As if these things had nothing to do with him, Madman slowly opened his eyes, looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Don't be so rude, call me senior brother." "Look at you now, how do you look like a senior brother?" Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at him and said, "Stop talking nonsense, let's go out and take a look." "Go out for what?" Madman was stunned. Qin Feiyong said, "I estimate that we should have already entered the hinterland of the far west. I want to go out and confirm it." "For such a small matter, can't you go out by yourself? Why did you call me?" Madman glared at Qin Feiyong and closed his eyes again. "Who is coming to the far west?" Qin Feiyong was furious. He stepped forward and grabbed Madman, and appeared above the glacier outside. "You!" Madman could not help but be angry, but before he could get angry, a trace of surprise crawled on his face as he scanned the surroundings. In this world, he really did sense an invisible force. This power had an extremely strong penetrating power. It could actually ignore his physical defense, enter his body, steal his life, and erode his soul. "As expected, we have reached the hinterland of the far west," Madman muttered. Why was it so quiet? Why didn't Qin Feiyong say anything? When he looked at Qin Feiyong, his expression changed drastically. He saw that Qin Feiyong had already turned into an ice sculpture. The madman hurriedly waved his hand, and a barrier appeared. However, although there was a barrier separating the cold current, the ice on Qin Feiyong's body did not show any signs of melting. "Don't tell me he's already dead." The madman's eyelids twitched as he realized he had been careless. This was the hinterland of the far west, and the cold current was countless times more terrifying than outside. Let alone Qin Feiyong, who was a perfect war god. Even a half-step divine monarch like him felt his body stiffen. Boom! He hurriedly circulated his divine power to melt the ice on Qin Feiyong's body. Several breaths later, the ice finally melted. Qin Feiyong shivered and curled up. He looked up at Madman and said angrily, "Do you know that I almost died? Are you blaming me?" Madman pursed his lips. "Who should I blame if not you?" Qin Feiyong's eyes were red. The moment he came out, his consciousness was swallowed by the cold current and his entire body fell into darkness. He didn't even have time to enter the Black Tortoise world again. In those few short breaths, he had truly felt the aura of death. "Isn't it fine now? Don't be like a sissy and make a fuss." Madman glanced at Qin Feiyong with disdain and then scanned the void again. His brows gradually furrowed. "I'm a sissy?" Qin Feiyong was so angry that he went crazy. What kind of person was this? He was almost frozen to death, and he was still mocking him like this? "I'll endure it." Qin Feiyong took a deep breath and suppressed the grievance in his heart as he scanned the surroundings. Immediately, his eyes were also filled with bewilderment. The barrier formed by Madman blocked the fatal cold current, but it couldn't block that invisible force. It was a bit exaggerated. It could even penetrate a barrier made of divine power? Madman frowned and turned to look at Qin Feiyong. "We seem to be sure that we shouldn't have come to this place. You only know now." Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. "Why don't we go back now?" Madman said. "You must be joking. We've already come this far and we're still going back?" Qin Feiyong said. Now, his interest was piqued. Madman chuckled and said, "If that's the case, then let's go." Qin Feiyong was about to bring Madman into the Black Tortoise world. But at this moment, the little boy's voice sounded in Qin Feiyong's mind again. "Qin Feiyong, you can't come to the Black Tortoise world again." There was a tone that didn't allow for discussion. "Why?" Qin Feiyong was stunned and asked in surprise. "The penetrative power of this force is beyond imagination. If you don't use your origin power, Even the black tortoise world won't be able to block it. The little boy said. So terrifying? Qin Feiyong was shocked. The little boy said, you can try going to the castle. The castle is a heaven-defying divine artifact with the power of law. It might be able to block it. This? Qin Feiyong hesitated. Let's go. What are you still standing there for? Seeing Qin Feiyong standing there motionless, Madman couldn't help but urge him. I can't go. My spatial divine artifact can block the corrosion of this force. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Madman was stunned and frowned. Then what should we do? How would I know? Qin Feiyong said angrily. He wasn't omnipotent, so why ask him everything? Then let's try walking for a while. Let's see how strong this force is. Madman frowned and suggested. That's the only way. Qin Feiyong nodded. In short, he would never bring Madman to the castle. Although Madman had been helping him during this period of time, who knew Madman's true purpose? It was better to be on guard. The two converged their auras and flew deeper into the castle at their fastest speed. As they went deeper and deeper, they could no longer sense the aura of the beasts. But the invisible force was becoming more and more terrifying. At first, the feeling of seizing life force and eroding the soul wasn't too obvious. But gradually, Qin Feiyong and Madman could clearly sense it. After about 1,000,000 miles, Qin Feiyong's face suddenly lit up. He pointed to the glacier in front and shouted, Look, the gray castle is in front. Madman looked up and was slightly stunned. Other than the endless glacier, there was nothing else in front of them. Where is the castle? Are you seeing things? Madman looked at Qin Feiyong and frowned. No way. Qin Feiyong rubbed his eyes and looked again. There was indeed no castle. What was going on? Madman looked at Qin Feiyong, and his face suddenly changed. Not good. It should be that force that has already eroded your consciousness, causing you to hallucinate just now. Hallucination. Qin Feiyong was shocked. It seemed that his consciousness was indeed in a trance. You can't go any further. Madman stopped and said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyong was a little unwilling. Then should I just give up like this? Madman pondered for a moment and said, Your space divine item should be able to hold on for a while. Go in and hide first. I will go take a look alone. Is this okay? Qin Feiyong was a little worried. It's okay. With my cultivation, I can still hold on for a while. After Madman finished speaking, he turned into a stream of light and disappeared from Qin Feiyong's sight without looking back. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed, and he also entered the castle. Everyone was cultivating in seclusion. Qin Feiyong didn't disturb everyone and silently sensed the castle. In the end, he found that the castle could really block the erosion of that force. He finally let out a sigh of relief. After pondering for a moment, he drove the castle and chased after Madman. He definitely couldn't catch up. After all, Madman's speed had far surpassed his. However, he was more and more curious about the mysterious gray castle. Qindage. Suddenly, Fire Lotus opened her eyes and walked to Qin Feiyong's side. During this period of seclusion, Fire Lotus had also broken through to perfect war god level. What's wrong? Qin Feiyong turned to look at Fire Lotus and asked with a smile. Fire Lotus looked at the glacier outside through the image in the void. She shook her head and said worriedly, You shouldn't have followed Madman here. Qin Feiyong was slightly taken aback and asked, You know this place? I heard people in Ninth Heaven Palace say that the danger level of the Far West is comparable to the depths of the Sky Dragon Sea. Even if an absolute god came in, they might not be able to leave alive. Fire Lotus said, I see. With the castle and Black Tortoise world, it should be fine. Qin Feiyong smiled comfortingly. You're too optimistic. Fire Lotus shook her head and looked at the glacier outside. She let out a low sigh in her heart. At the same time, Madman sped along. His face was no longer as frivolous as before. It was incomparably serious. That was because that strange power was far more terrifying than he had expected. The vitality in his body was quickly draining. His soul was also being eroded. Suddenly, he looked at an ice mountain in front of him. That ice mountain was more than 1,000 feet high. At the peak of the mountain stood a black-haired old man. Grand Elder? Madman was taken aback and hurriedly flew towards the ice mountain. He shouted from afar, "Old man, why are you here?" However, the Grand Elder did not answer. He just smiled at him and waved at him, as if calling him over. A trace of suspicion crept up Madman's brows. But suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He slammed on the brakes and stopped in the void. He rubbed his eyes and looked up again. The Grand Elder and the ice mountain had both disappeared. It really was an illusion. Madman's heart trembled. It seemed that even his consciousness was beginning to be eroded. But there was not even a shadow of the gray castle. Do I really have to give up? Madman muttered to himself. Suddenly, he turned around and looked at the void behind him. His eyes flashed, and in the next moment, he disappeared without a trace. Space divine item. If Qin Feiyang was here, he would definitely run out and find Madman to settle the score. He clearly had a space divine item, but he was still hiding it? Unfortunately, Qin Feiyang was still far behind and did not have the chance to see it. At the same time, in the central area of the hinterland, a huge gray castle stood on top of a glacier. It was surrounded by white snow. However, there was no snow on top of the gray castle. There was not even a piece of frost to be found. At this moment, a gray figure was standing on top of the castle, looking ahead. He was looking in the direction of Qin Feiyang and Madman. I didn't expect someone to break in. It seems that the existence of this sovereign has already been known. The gray figure muttered and disappeared again. Not even a trace was left, as if he had never appeared. Chapter 2102. The night was as dark as ink. The howling snowstorm swept in all directions. In the void, the two spatial divine objects, one in front and one behind, quickly approached the location of the gray castle. About half an hour passed. The madman suddenly stopped in the void, looking at the scene in front of him, his eyes shining. The glacier was endless. A gray castle, like an immemorial giant beast, lay on top of the glacier, emitting a cold and mysterious aura. There really is an ancient castle, the madman murmured. After observing for a while and confirming that there was no danger, he rode the spatial divine object and carefully approached the gray castle. Soon, he appeared at the gate of the ancient castle. The stone gate was tightly closed, releasing a strong aura. There were no windows in the entire gray castle, so there was no way to see the situation inside. I was born in the North Domain since I was young, but I didn't know that there was such a castle in the far west. The madman rode the spatial divine object, carefully observing the gray castle, his eyes full of curiosity. Finally, he came to a conclusion. This castle was not simple. According to his judgment, it should be a divine artifact, and its level was not low. Otherwise, it would not be able to remain undamaged in such a harsh environment. But how to get in? After pondering for a while, the madman gritted his teeth, left the spatial divine object, and appeared outside the gate. His entire body was suddenly drowned by that strange power. In an instant, his strong and full body shriveled, and dense wrinkles appeared on his face. His hair also quickly turned white. In an instant, he aged more than half. One must know, he was still a half-step supreme god. From this, one could imagine how terrifying the strange energy that permeated this place was. The madman was also shocked, and didn't dare to stay for a moment. Immediately entering the spatial divine object, he was still scared. Not only was more than half of his life force stolen, even his soul was wrapped by that strange power. A heart-wrenching pain came from his soul. It took him a lot of effort to refine that strange power. What should I do? While recovering his life force, he racked his brains to think of a way. Let's try again. A moment passed. He suddenly gritted his teeth, left the spatial divine object again, and appeared in front of the stone gate. The same situation as before happened again. His life force and soul were being plundered and eroded by that strange power. However, he didn't care at all. Blood-colored divine power surged out. "Open for me!" With a roar, he punched the stone door. Rumble. A loud explosion rang out, shaking the heavens and the earth. However, the stone door did not budge at all. The gray castle didn't even tremble in the slightest. So sturdy, Madman was dumbfounded. After he came back to his senses, he didn't dare stay any longer. He quickly hid in a spatial divine object and immediately sat cross-legged on the ground to refine the strange energy that was corroding his soul. This time, he stayed longer than before. The life force that was robbed was naturally more than the last time. His hair was white and mottled, and he was emaciated. His body was also extremely stooped, and he looked like an old man on the verge of death. After a while, only then did the madman refine the strange power in his sea of consciousness. Immediately after, he stood up and looked at the gray castle's stone door with fear in his eyes. "I can't go out again, or I'll definitely lose my life." Even his voice had become extremely hoarse. Although the strange power could be refined, the life force that was robbed was not so easy to recover. Now, there wasn't much life force left in his body. If he went out again, he would definitely die on the spot. But the gray castle was right in front of him. He was unwilling to give up just like that. I can't rush. Let's recover the life force I lost first," Madman whispered, trying to calm himself down. Then, he took out a pill. This pill was emerald green and had a total of 8 patterns. It emitted an extremely majestic life force. This was the Divine Life Pill. The Divine Life Pill not only had the effects of healing pills, bone-replenishing pills, regeneration pills, and other pills, but it also had the ability to recover life force. Madman took the Divine Life Pill and closed his eyes to cultivate. The effect of the Divine Life Pill was immediate. After the madman took it, his old face and snow-white hair began to slowly recover. Time passed bit by bit. 4 hours later, Madman finally recovered his original appearance. He was full of energy. He opened his eyes and looked at the stone door again. Damn it! But suddenly, his body trembled. He seemed to have forgotten about Qin Feiyang. After so long, would he have become a dry corpse? It's over. When Qin Batian and Lu Xingyang know that I killed their descendant, they will definitely come to settle the score with me. No, I have to go back and take a look. If I can find his body, I can answer to Qin Batian and the others. Madman patted his head and immediately drove the spatial divine item back the way he came. However, after turning around, it hadn't even flown half a mile when the spatial divine object suddenly seemed to have collided with something and was actually bounced back. Madman was startled. He looked up and saw a gray light screen appear in the void outside. This light screen flickered with a dim light and blocked the way in front. What's going on? Madman was surprised. He waved his hand, and the screen quickly turned to look in several other directions. Finally, he was shocked to find that it was not a simple light screen, but a gray barrier. The barrier, with the gray castle as the center, covered an area of 1 mile around. In other words, now, he was trapped inside the barrier. When did this barrier appear? Why can't I feel anything? Madman glanced at the barrier with a dumbfounded expression. At the same time, outside the barrier, in the void, why is there a barrier? Qin Feiyang stood in the castle and looked at the gray barrier in astonishment. Although his speed was much slower than Madman's, it had still been more than 4 hours. So just now, he finally came here. And he just happened to see the gray barrier appear. Originally, he also wanted to get close to the gray castle, but the appearance of the barrier made him stop decisively. In other words, Madman actually helped him out and saved him from being trapped. This kind of barrier won't appear for no reason. Something must have hit it to trigger the barrier and make it appear. Fire Lotus glanced at the barrier and said, "That's true." Qin Feiyang nodded. What could it be? Wait. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang turned to look at Fire Lotus and asked, "We don't seem to have seen Madman along the way, right?" No. Fire Lotus shook her head. Could it be? Qin Feiyang looked at the barrier again and said in surprise, "It can't be him, right?" Because they were both in the space divine object and couldn't see each other. Neither Qin Feiyang nor Madman knew that the other was here. Compared to the relatively calm Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus, Madman was panicking at this moment. He lowered his head and muttered to himself, "If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have left that kid behind. What should we do now?" Qin Batian and Lu Xingyang are both ruthless people. When they hear the news of Qin Feiyang's death, they will definitely come to settle the score with me. He already thought that Qin Feiyang had died. Of course, he couldn't be blamed for thinking so. After all, this was the far west, and it was the hinterland that was shrouded in that strange force. And even Qin Feiyang himself said that the space divine object couldn't stop the invasion of this strange force. So in Madman's view, Qin Feiyang definitely wouldn't survive. What a headache. If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have brought him here. In the future, how am I going to explain to Qin Batian and the others? Madman rubbed his forehead and looked at the gray castle, suddenly burning with anger. It's all because of this thing. Today, if I don't break this damn thing and see what's inside, I won't give up. Without a doubt, the gray castle became his target to vent his anger. Shwa. The next moment, he appeared outside the stone door, his eyes emitting a sharp light. Shatter for me. With his roar, a golden light emerged, carrying a destructive aura, and blasted towards the stone door. Clang. Boom. The stone door trembled. It works? Madman's eyes suddenly flashed. However, before he had time to be happy, his body stiffened and he immediately cursed, because the stone door only trembled a little before returning to normal. Looking at the place where the golden light bombarded, there was only a white scratch. Damn you. Madman could only hide in the space divine object again. It's really him. Outside the barrier, looking at Madman who appeared and disappeared out of thin air, Qin Feiyang's face suddenly had a trace of anger. He knew that this bastard was ignoring him. Fire Lotus glanced at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "The level of his space divine object is not low?" Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. When Madman appeared just now, he also noticed that more than half of Madman's life force was taken away. From this, it could be seen that the strange force inside the barrier was far stronger than outside, and Madman's space divine object could block the strange force inside the barrier, so it was definitely not an ordinary space divine object. Madman is imprisoned, and from the looks of it, he has wanted to break the stone door more than once. But until now, the stone door has not been opened. I'm afraid that even with us, we won't be able to open it. Why don't we go back first? Fire Lotus suggested. Then what about Madman? Qin Feiyang asked. He asked for it, so why should we care? Besides, Madman's life is not in danger if he hides in the space divine object. When we go back, we will report to First Elder and Shangwan Fenglan. They will naturally think of a way to save Madman. Fire Lotus said. This, Qin Feiyang hesitated. Since they were already here, he really didn't want to leave like this. The most important thing was, if there was any treasure hidden in this gray castle, then when First Elder and Shangwan Fenglan came and got the treasure, he would definitely not have a share. If only Chang Shui was here. With Chang Shui's ability, he will definitely be able to break this stone door. Qin Feiyang sighed. Chapter 2103. The key point is that Chang Shui is not in your hands. Let's go. There may not be any treasures in this castle. Maybe there is a Grim Reaper sitting there. Fire Lotus said. Grim Reaper? Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at Fire Lotus, his eyes full of surprise. Look at the strange power emitted by this gray castle. Even the madman can't withstand it. It can be seen that this castle is definitely not an ordinary thing. Then what is the gray figure hiding in the castle if not the Grim Reaper? Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and nodded. It makes sense. Our lives are more important. Let's retreat. After saying that, he turned the castle around and flew away. Boom. However, the castle seemed to be hitting something. Immediately after, a gray light curtain appeared out of thin air and bounced the castle back. Qin Feiyang's eyes widened. Why is there another light curtain? He quickly changed the image and was shocked to find that another enchantment had appeared at this moment. This enchantment was even bigger than the one that trapped the madman. Not only did it imprison Qin Feiyang, but even the madman and the enchantment that trapped him were also enveloped. In other words, now it was equivalent to two enchantments. The first enchantment trapped the madman. The second enchantment trapped Qin Feiyang. Oh no! The people in the gray castle must have noticed that we have entered the far west and set up a trap here in advance, Fire Lotus said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang's heart also sank. If it was really as Fire Lotus said, then they were already trapped here. At the same time, the madman also heard the movement outside and quickly changed the image, locking onto the direction of the castle. What's the situation? Another enchantment actually appeared? His face was also full of surprise. Could it be? There was someone else? If there was someone else, who could it be? Wait, it couldn't be Qin Feiyang, right? Welcome to this sovereign's domain of death. Suddenly, a hoarse laugh sounded in the barrier and entered the ears of Qin Feiyang and the madman. The two of them shifted their vision at the same time and locked onto the gray castle. However, they saw nothing outside the gray castle. That hoarse laughter seemed to come out of nowhere. Now, I'll give you a chance to live. The hoarse voice sounded again. Just as he finished speaking, the barrier that trapped the madman suddenly dissipated. However, the enchantment that trapped Qin Feiyang showed no signs of dissipating. In other words, at this moment, there was only one barrier here. Qin Feiyang and the madman were trapped in the same barrier. This domain of death is my strongest technique. With your strength, you will never be able to break it. So, I'll kindly advise you not to do useless work. The mysterious man's voice echoed in the bounded domain again. Death domain? Qin Feiyang and madman frowned. Now, please come out first. I don't like to speak while looking at the air. The mysterious man said. Looking at the air? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Listening to what he said, this mysterious man was looking at them now. But there wasn't even a shadow inside the barrier. Could it be? Qin Feiyang suddenly looked at the gray castle, his eyes flashing. Was it the gray figure that gave Long Tianyu the potential pill? Come out. I've already dispersed the power of death. I won't rob your vitality and erode your divine soul. The mysterious man said again. It's already dispersed? Qin Feiyang glanced at the void outside in surprise. He really didn't dare to go out and take the risk. One had to know. The strange power here, even the madman, a half-step divine lord, couldn't last for a few breaths, let alone him. If the mysterious man was lying to him, wouldn't going out be the same as courting death? The madman was also hesitating. But in the end, he finally gritted his teeth and left the space divine item, appearing inside the barrier. Inside the barrier, the strange power had really disappeared. Seeing that the madman was safe and sound, Qin Feiyang was completely relieved. However, just as Qin Feiyang was about to leave the castle, Fire Lotus said, Qin Dage, take me with you? Take you with me? Qin Feiyang frowned. Maybe I can help. Fire Lotus said. This? Qin Feiyang hesitated. Even if I can't help, you can send me to the castle as soon as possible. There won't be any danger. Fire Lotus said with a smile. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, but you have to promise me that you will always stay by my side and not act on your own. Okay. Fire Lotus smiled. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, rolled up Fire Lotus, and appeared not far away from the madman. It's really you. Seeing Qin Feiyang appear, the madman was overjoyed and hurriedly ran in front of the two, saying, You really scared me to death. I thought you were already dead. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Wait, that's not right. Didn't you say that your space divine item can't block this strange power? Why is nothing happening now? The madman frowned. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, Didn't you also say that you don't have a space divine item? The madman was stunned, shook his head and smiled bitterly, saying, Okay, pretend I didn't ask. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at the madman, looked at the gray castle, and said coldly, We have all come out, but what about you? Are you going to hide in there forever? If you want to see this sovereign's true face, let's see if you have the qualifications. As the mysterious man's voice fell, clouds of gray fog suddenly appeared in the barrier, floating in the void, emitting a gloomy and evil aura. Immediately after, rumble. In the clouds of gray fog, there was a deafening sound. It was not the sound of aura erupting, nor was it the sound of battle, but the sound of footsteps. And there was more than one. deafening. Moreover, there was also a terrifying evil aura, as if countless devils were tearing the barrier between heaven and earth, climbing up from hell. What is that? Qin Feiyong and the other two stood together, staring at the gray fog with vigilance. The footsteps were getting closer and closer and more deafening. Qin Feiyong and the other two's heartbeats were beating at the same frequency as the footsteps. Even the qi and blood in their body were surging uncontrollably. Be careful, the madman secretly warned. Qin Feiyong nodded. There was no need to think to know that something bad was going to happen. About a few breaths later, boom! Suddenly, a huge beast shadow walked out from one of the clouds of gray fog. The pupils of the three shrank. It turned out to be a frost ape. It was exactly the same as the 16 frost apes they encountered at the beginning. It had 9 heads, like a small mountain, standing in the void opposite them, exuding a terrifying aura. Be careful, it also has a half-step paragon god cultivation base. The madman whispered. Half-step paragon god. Qin Feiyong's body stiffened. How strong was this mysterious man to be able to summon a half-step paragon god beast? However, an even more shocking scene was yet to come. In the other gray fog, beasts also walked out one after another. And there was more than one kind. There was a snow leopard that was more than 10 meters in size. There was an ice python that was as huge as a mountain ridge. There was also a lion eagle that Qin Feiyong was more familiar with. Each of the lion-headed eagles was dozens of feet tall, comparable to a mountain. Wait, and there was no exception. These beasts were all half-step paragon god existences. The ferocious aura surged, pressing Qin Feiyong and Fire Lotus until they were almost out of breath. So many? Even the madman was shocked, because there were a total of 35 beasts that appeared in front of them in the end. Let's begin. The mysterious man's voice sounded. Boom. As the voice fell, the 35 beasts stepped on the void and charged toward Qin Feiyong and the other two. All of you, back off, the madman shouted. 35 half-step paragon god beasts. With Qin Feiyong's current cultivation base, there was no room for him to fight back. Even just the fluctuations of the battle were enough to take his life. Hearing the madman's words, Qin Feiyong didn't dare to hesitate and immediately pulled Fire Lotus and retreated. When the two retreated to the edge of the realm of death, the madman waved his hand and a wave of divine power emerged, forming a divine power barrier that enveloped Qin Feiyong and Fire Lotus. This was naturally to protect Qin Feiyong and Fire Lotus. After all, the realm of death was only so big, and the battle of half-step paragon god was enough to spread millions of miles away. Therefore, no matter where they retreated, they couldn't escape the fate of being affected by the fluctuations of the battle. Therefore, they had to be prepared in advance. And Qin Feiyong and Fire Lotus's lives weren't in danger, so the madman could fight without any hesitation. In the blink of an eye, the 35 beasts had already charged in front of the madman, each exuding an aura that could destroy the world. This is interesting. The madman chuckled. Boom. Blood-colored divine power surged out like a tide. In an instant, the madman's aura changed greatly, as if he had become a different person. His eyes flashed red as if he was possessed by a demon god. His fiendish aura was even more terrifying than the 35 beasts. As he waved his hand, the blood-colored divine power gathered together. Clang! In the next instant, a palm-sized blood-colored square seal appeared. Blood Demon Seal. Fire Lotus might be unfamiliar with the Blood Demon Seal, but Qin Feiyong was very familiar with it, because the madman had used this divine art on Turtle King Island, and it was a peak divine art. I am invincible. Kill. The madman raised his head and laughed wildly. The Blood Devil Seal rushed into the sky and expanded in the wind. In an instant, it turned into a giant seal that was several hundred feet long. Demonic aura spread in all directions. As he waved his hand, the Blood Demon Seal descended with an aura that could destroy heaven and earth. Roar! The two frost apes roared and raised their thick and solid arms to meet the attack. Boom! Inside the enchantment, there was a loud explosion that shook the heavens and earth. The arms of the two frost apes were crushed by the Blood Devil Seal on the spot. Blood and flesh flew everywhere. However, as if they didn't feel pain, they raised their other arm and threw it at the blood demon seal. Although the physical body and power of beasts were naturally stronger than humans, it was still a peak divine art. How could the body of flesh block it? The other arm also shattered with a crack. Blood splattered and dyed the ground red. But then, a scene that shocked the madman and Qin Feiyang even more appeared. The two frost apes' arms were shattered, but they still didn't have any intention of dodging. They didn't even scream. It was as if they really didn't know what pain was. What was even crazier was that after their arms shattered, not only did they not retreat, they used their bodies to charge at the blood demon seal. Chapter 2104. What's going on? Aren't they afraid of death? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. No. Fire Lotus shook her head and glanced at the two frost apes. Suddenly, she found that their eyes seemed to be empty. Could it be? Her gaze trembled as she quickly looked at the other 33 beasts. Their eyes were also empty. I see. She immediately understood and hurriedly shouted, "Madman, be careful. They are puppets." Puppets? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Madman was also stunned. The two carefully sized up the beasts. After Fire Lotus's reminder, they quickly noticed the clues. The 35 beasts not only had empty eyes, but also no heartbeat. They were equivalent to corpses. No wonder they were so crazy. Corpses had no consciousness and were completely controlled by someone. In other words, at this moment, these beasts were secretly controlled by the mysterious person hiding in the gray castle. In the blink of an eye, the two frost apes had already collided with the blood devil seal. With a loud bang, the two frost apes' huge bodies exploded in the void. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The blood devil seal was not damaged at all. It carried a monstrous aura and continued to kill the other puppets. Boom! The remaining 32 beasts were also killed one after another. I was looking forward to it, but I didn't expect it to be a group of puppets. Madman waved his hand, and the blood devil seal turned into a bloody light that floated above his head. The bloody light illuminated half the sky. Looking down on puppets? The mysterious person's voice sounded, "Puppets can't activate their battle soul and can't use God techniques. With my means, killing them is like killing dogs." Madman sneered. "Hee hee, ha ha." The mysterious person couldn't help but laugh and said, "Don't worry, this is just an appetizer. The real show has yet to begin." Appetizer? Qin Feiyang's heart trembled as he swept his gaze towards the balls of gray mist floating in the air. Could it be that there were stronger puppets in the gray fog? "Come out," the mysterious person shouted. Deafening footsteps could be heard coming from within the gray fog. Boom! In the next moment, more and more ferocious beasts appeared. Just like the 35 ferocious beasts from before, its eyes were empty and there was no heartbeat. However, the auras they emitted were as different as heaven and earth. An initial paragon god. Madman's pupils constricted as he looked at them one by one. In the end, he discovered that there were as many as 50 fierce beasts. Can Madman withstand it? Qin Feiyang was quite worried. 50 beasts that had just become paragon gods. Even if it was a puppet, it was not something that ordinary people could deal with. If they were all alive, Madman would definitely have a hard time. After all, there are too many of them. But puppets, with Madman's methods, it shouldn't be a problem. Fire Lotus whispered. She then looked at the gray castle, a cold light flashing in the depths of her eyes. "Go," the mysterious man said. The 50 ferocious beasts instantly turned into a torrent and crazily pounced at Madman. "No matter how many come, I'll kill them all." The madman laughed arrogantly. Without any fear, he charged over. He wasn't afraid of a mere puppet. Qin Feiyang watched nervously. In the meantime, he was even more afraid of the mysterious man in the gray castle. One must know, whether it was a half-step paragon god or an initial paragon god, they were all extremely terrifying existences. And this person actually controlled so many puppets of this level. Just how strong was he? It was hard to imagine. As Fire Lotus said, this person was indeed a terrifying devil comparable to the Grim Reaper. "Don't mind it." Suddenly, the mysterious man's voice sounded again. Immediately after, An invisible force crashed down, and the barrier that the madman had set up earlier instantly collapsed. Qin Feiyang's expression suddenly changed, because as soon as the barrier was broken, the fluctuations of the battle between madman and those puppets were overwhelming. Qin Feiyang immediately felt the threat of death. "Quickly go to the castle," Fire Lotus shouted. But before Fire Lotus's voice faded, another invisible force descended and shrouded the two. Then, the two felt their bodies become light. The next moment, they both appeared outside the barrier. Huh! The two were stunned. What was this situation? Fire Lotus came back to her senses and said, "Qin Dage, take this opportunity to leave." Qin Feiyang nodded. However, before they could enter the castle, another gray barrier appeared out of thin air and trapped them again. Damn it! Fire Lotus glanced at the barrier, her face gloomy. "Don't worry, there will be a way." Qin Feiyang secretly comforted her and turned to look at the gray castle, saying, "Show me what you have. You have guts, but I don't know how strong you are." The mysterious man smiled sinisterly. Inside the barrier where Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus were, clouds of black fog immediately appeared. Boom! A series of loud and clear footsteps resounded. Immediately after, from the black fog, beasts walked out one after another. Their strength was not strong, and they were all perfect war gods. Compared to the puppets that Madman was facing at the moment, it could be said that the difference was like heaven and earth. But their numbers were several times more than the puppets that Madman was facing at the moment. Qin Feiyang glanced at them and estimated that there were at least 200 beasts. Fire Lotus glanced at the beasts and said in a low voice, "Qin Dage, let me do it, so that I don't get injured and expose my identity." No. Although these beasts are all puppets, their cultivation is higher than yours. You are not their opponent. Don't worry about me. A group of perfect war god puppets can't injure me. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he decisively sent Fire Lotus to the castle. Only in the castle could he guarantee her safety. "You're quite affectionate." "Not bad, not bad. This sovereign appreciates you." The mysterious man laughed hoarsely. Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear and glanced at the beasts. His aura erupted like a volcano as he took the initiative to attack. "Kill." The mysterious man's roar also sounded. More than 200 ferocious beasts suddenly turned into a torrent and rushed toward Qin Feiyang from all directions. Humph! Qin Feiyang snorted from his nose and had no intention to defend at all. Divine power gushed out and attacked the beasts. He didn't show any mercy. Every time he attacked, he could kill a puppet. For a moment, broken corpses and limbs flew all over the sky. Blood dyed the sky red. Boom! Suddenly, just as he smashed a puppet with his palm, two ferocious apes pounced at him fiercely, and their millstone-sized fists fiercely hit his back. But Qin Feiyang's face only turned slightly pale, and he didn't suffer any actual damage. After being tempered by two heavenly tribulations, not only did his strength exceed ordinary people, the willfulness and strength of his body were also comparable to a high-grade divine artifact. So, the attacks of the two ferocious apes didn't have any lethality in front of him. From the beginning to the end, he didn't get angry. He turned around and directly killed the two ferocious apes, because there was no need to get angry with these puppets that had no consciousness and no emotions. Even if you were angry, they wouldn't understand. At this moment, he was like a god of death, his expression extremely cold. It was completely a one-sided massacre. Of course, he didn't use the power of the divine dragon, but the other two types of divine power were enough for him to deal with these puppets. And the battle on the madman's side was more intense than Qin Feiyang's side. Although the madman was very arrogant, he didn't dare to lower his guard in the face of 50 early-stage supreme god puppets and fought with all his strength. About 100 breaths later, Qin Feiyang stood proudly in the void, his aura like a rainbow. His whole body was covered in blood, as if he was bathed in a rain of blood. The more than 200 ferocious beasts had all been killed. The blood on his body was from those ferocious beasts. Below the glacier, there were mountains of bones piled up, and the pungent smell of blood filled the entire death region. "Die for me." It was also at this moment. The madman's violent roar sounded. Qin Feiyang turned his head and saw the head of a ferocious beast being smashed into pieces by the madman's punch. His strength is indeed not simple, Qin Feiyang murmured. With a half-step supreme god cultivation, killing a early-stage supreme god ferocious beast, even if it was a puppet, was enough to be praised. It seems that this lord has underestimated you a little. The mysterious man's voice sounded, echoing in the barrier for a long time. I also want to see how strong I am now, Qin Feiyang sneered. When he was still an early-stage war god, he could already kill a half-step supreme god. What was a mere perfect war god? One must know. He hadn't activated the six-word divine art yet. The six-word divine art could ignore the barrier of a large realm. It was estimated that even if it was a perfect war god, he could still fight with the six-word divine art. Haha, what an arrogant brat. The mysterious man laughed hoarsely and said, "This lord will fulfill your wish." As soon as his voice faded, another ferocious beast roared out from the gray fog. Their cultivation had reached the level of a half-step supreme god. Not enough, not enough. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a wisp of blood-red light streaked across the sky like lightning, entering the head of a ferocious beast. Crack! The ferocious beast's head shattered on the spot. Following closely, that wisp of blood-red light attacked the next ferocious beast. None of the ferocious beasts could withstand the blood-red light's attack and were instantly destroyed. This was the power of the kill formula. Even though it was only formed by a wisp of killing intent, it still had a heaven-defying divine power. And now, he could only activate the kill formula, battle formula, advance formula, and return formula. Although he was only one step away from a half-step supreme god, a half-step supreme god had already surpassed the war god level. Therefore, divine arts such as the divine dragon formula, the fire phoenix formula, and the end of the void formula were unable to display their original power. In other words, these divine arts could not cause harm to a half-step supreme god. Of course, if Qin Feiyang really went all out, even if he didn't use the six-word divine art, he would still be able to fight against a half-step supreme god. However, this way, he would definitely be injured and bleed. This was not what he wanted to see. Therefore, he was more straightforward and directly revealed the six-word divine art. Kill one that came out. In the end, it was really like that. Those puppets only revealed half of their bodies in the gray fog before they were mercilessly shattered by the blood-red light. Chapter 2105. Fuck, so fierce. Looking at Qin Feiyang killing gods and devils, Madman couldn't help but be dumbfounded. But when he noticed the wisp of blood grace, he smiled in relief. He had personally experienced the might of the blood-colored fleeting grace. He knew the terrifying power of blood grace. This daddy can't lose to him. Trump card, is it? Who doesn't have one? The corners of Madman's mouth curled up, and a wisp of golden light appeared, streaking across the sky like lightning. One of the beasts that had just reached the supreme god realm was instantly killed. Kid, let's compete and see who can kill more. Madman laughed wildly. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman and asked with a smile, "Is there a prize?" "You rascal, you really want to take advantage of me at any time and place." Madman rolled his eyes. "You are an influential figure in our Nine Heavens Palace. Only a fool wouldn't take advantage of you." "No prize, I won't do it." Qin Feiyang laughed. Madman snorted coldly. "If you don't want to do it, then don't. This daddy will suffer a loss." "What loss?" Qin Feiyang didn't understand. "Look at your opponent, and then look at this daddy's opponent. They are both supreme god-level puppets. In terms of numbers, I definitely can't compare to you. If you want to compete, then let's compete in quality. 1 billion soul stones, do you dare?" Madman's face was full of provocation. Compete in quality? Qin Feiyang's face twitched. If they competed in quality, then he would definitely lose. Because no matter how many he killed, it couldn't compare to a puppet that had just reached the supreme god level. After all, these puppets he killed were only half-step divine lords. If he still competed, It would be equivalent to giving 1 billion soul stones to Madman. Only a fool would do such a losing deal. Coward. Madman despised. Don't provoke me. It's useless. If you want to compete, then let's compete in quantity. Qin Feiyong disdained. Madman rolled his eyes fiercely. If they competed in quantity, he would definitely lose. Because Qin Feiyong had already killed more puppets than him. The two of them were talking and laughing, and it didn't seem like they were fighting at all. What two arrogant brats. This sovereign wants to see how long you can laugh for. The mysterious man laughed angrily. This was simply a humiliation to him. As the mysterious man's voice fell, the ferocious beast that roared out of the black fog seemed to have its strength increased by a level. The puppet that Qin Feiyong faced was shockingly at the early Divine Lord realm. The madman's puppet was at the level of a lesser paragon god. They were densely packed and innumerable. He killed wave after wave, just like a beast tide. There was no end to it. Not enough, not enough. However, Qin Feiyong felt no pressure at all. The blood-red light was magnificent and unstoppable. Looking back at the madman, the mysterious golden light was unstoppable, and he was doing the same with ease. The power of this golden light is beyond my imagination, Qin Feiyong mumbled. Of all the methods the madman had displayed, what he cared about the most was the golden light. To be able to compete with the kill formula. Suddenly, a terrifying thought crept into his mind. Could it be this was also a heaven-defying technique that could allow one to break through countless realms? The glacier below was piled up with mountains of corpses. The death domain sealed the surroundings, and the pungent smell of blood couldn't disperse. All of it gathered within the domain, making one nauseous. Even in the death domain, there was already a bloody mist. You really have some ability? The more the mysterious man looked, the more surprised he became. All of a sudden, the puppet that appeared from the gray fog had its strength soared by another level. The puppet that Qin Feiyong faced was a lesser divine lord. The puppet that the madman faced was a greater paragon god. This is really satisfying. Although it's just a puppet, it's been a long time since I've killed to my heart's content. The madman laughed loudly. The golden light in his body surged and gathered in his palm. The next moment, with a loud clang, a halberd appeared, as if it was cast from gold, emitting a dazzling golden light. Brat, I'll let you see my true means now. The madman laughed wildly, grabbed the halberd, and waved it in the air. A golden light blade suddenly swept across the sky. The puppets that appeared from the gray fog were all shattered in an instant. This, Qin Feiyong was shocked. How similar was this to the kill formula? Are you shocked? Quickly let me see your true means. The madman laughed loudly. Qin Feiyong took a deep breath, and killing intent surged in his hand. Clang! A blood-colored long sword appeared out of thin air. A monstrous murderous aura instantly erupted from the death domain. The kill formula was fully activated. At this moment, he was like a killing god. He grabbed the blood-colored long sword and slashed out. The sword light tore the sky and split the earth. Those lesser divine lord puppets didn't have any room to resist and were torn to pieces by the sword energy. Powerful, the madman whispered. He was indeed a fierce person. However, he had a hunch that this wasn't Qin Feiyong's full strength, and there should be something hidden. Qin Feiyong also had the same feeling towards the madman. There might be more terrifying means hidden. The two of them slaughtered crazily. No matter how many puppets there were, they couldn't stop the blood-colored long sword and halberd in their hands. They were like invincible existences. But the puppets in the gray fog came wave after wave, like an undead army, and their strength was getting stronger and stronger. The puppets that the madman was facing at this moment had already reached the level of perfection god. The puppets that Qin Feiyong was facing had also reached the level of perfection god. In other words, Qin Feiyong had now crossed a major realm. But whether it was the madman or Qin Feiyong, they were invincible. Of course, they were able to do this because their opponents were all puppets. Because puppets couldn't use divine arts, couldn't activate soul suppressing, and didn't have divine weapons. They fought purely by relying on their physical body and strength. If If these puppets were replaced by living people, it would definitely be a different situation, because living people could use all kinds of methods like them. For example, divine arts, divine weapons, and so on. But even so, it could already reflect how terrifying the power of the blood-colored long sword and halberd was. However, the two of them also slowly felt the pressure. Because there were too many of them, they couldn't kill them all. If this continued, sooner or later they would be exhausted to death. And the mysterious man seemed to have the same plan, constantly summoning puppets to kill the two of them. Unknowingly, the sky began to gradually turn white. In other words, Qin Feiyong and the madman had been fighting nonstop for an entire night. The two death realms had become mountains of corpses and seas of blood. "How many puppets do you have?" the madman roared. He was already exhausted. "A lot, very fast. You can't kill them all in a year and a half." The mysterious man laughed. "Can't kill them all in a year and a half? How many puppets do you have?" Qin Feiyong was stunned and asked, "These beasts, did you turn them into puppets after killing them?" In this world, there is a kind of control secret technique. As long as you are controlled by this secret technique, you can instantly turn the other party into a puppet, the mysterious man said. Control secret technique? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Could it be the puppet technique? No. Although the puppet technique could also turn the other party into a puppet, their life would not disappear. And the secret technique that the mysterious man mastered was to erase the other party's life and turn them into a corpse. It was really a vicious secret technique, but in comparison, it seemed that the puppet technique was a little more advanced. Because under the control of the puppet technique, even if the other party became a puppet, they could still use divine arts, battle souls, and so on. Of course, in terms of cruelty, the puppet technique was definitely not as good as the secret technique that the mysterious man mastered. There aren't many perfection paragon gods in the entire northern region, and you actually have so many puppets. Who exactly are you? The madman said in a deep voice. Haha, in the current ancient realm, there aren't many perfection paragon gods, but in the previous era, there were as many as dogs. The mysterious man laughed sinisterly. The previous era? Qin Feiyong and the madman looked at each other, their eyes full of surprise. That's right. Although the previous era ended 100 million years ago, the living beings of the previous era were not extinct. And I was one of them, the mysterious man said, his hoarse voice suddenly becoming incomparably old. 100 million years ago? The previous era? What are you talking about? The madman frowned. You are all too weak now, and are not qualified to know these secrets. You'd better think about how to survive in the realm of death. The mysterious man laughed sinisterly. The madman said angrily, "Didn't you say that you would give us a chance to live?" "Yes. As long as you can last a month in the realm of death, I will let you go," the mysterious man said. A month. Qin Feiyong and the madman were dumbfounded. How was this possible? They were already exhausted after one night, let alone an entire month. If they had time to rest in the middle, it would be fine. But the mysterious man did not intend to let them rest at all. Continuously killing for a month without rest, with their ability, it was simply impossible. The mysterious man was determined to exhaust them to death. Damn it. It has always been me teasing others. No one dares to tease me. You want me to kill for a month, so I will kill for a month? Give you so much face? Kid, let's go to the space treasure. Ignore him, the madman said angrily. Qin Feiyong also felt that it made sense. There was no need to be led by the nose by this person. Enter the space treasure? Then you might as well try and see if I have a way to kill you. The mysterious man sneered. Don't be scared by him. Let's go. Madman angrily roared at Qin Feiyong before teleporting and disappearing without a trace. Qin Feiyong glanced at the gray castle and also disappeared in a flash. Really two disobedient young people. The mysterious man sighed. Clang. All of a sudden, the gray castle on the glacier bloomed with dazzling divine light. Immediately after, the gray divine light surged like a tide in the two realms of death. Inside the castle, Qin Feiyong immediately felt that the gray divine light was breaking the castle's defense bit by bit and slowly penetrating. Chapter 2106. Even the castle can't block it? Qin Feiyang turned pale with fright. The gray divine light seeped in, and a strange force quickly spread in the castle. Not only Qin Feiyang himself, Fire Lotus, Mermaid Princess, and White-Eyed Wolf were also rapidly aging. This was a sign that their vitality was being robbed, and that strange force was still crazily eroding their divine souls. Little Qinzi, think of a way. If this goes on, we will all become jerky. Feiyang. No one was in the mood to cultivate in seclusion now. They all got up and looked at Qin Feiyang in horror. But there was one person who didn't have fear in her eyes, but there was a trace of anger. This person was Fire Lotus. She stared at the gray castle outside through the screen. There was a trace of hostility between her eyebrows, but Qin Feiyang and the others didn't notice it because of the mask. But suddenly, the divine light of the gray castle dissipated. That strange force also quickly receded like the tide. Do you understand now? In front of me, no matter where you hide, it's useless. Now, I will count to 3. If you don't come out, then don't blame me for being merciless. 1, 2, 3. Just as the number 3 appeared, Qin Feiyang and the madman appeared in the realm of death. There was no other way. They could only come out, because even if they hid in the divine space item, they would only die. Especially Qin Feiyang. It would implicate the Mermaid Princess and the others. This was not what he wanted to see. Your divine space items are very good, but unfortunately, they are all sealed and can't block my death force. The mysterious man smiled coldly. What? Sealed? Qin Feiyang looked at the madman in shock. He didn't expect that this person's divine space item was also sealed. Could it be that it was also a heaven-defying divine object like the castle? Don't say. It was really possible. Otherwise, why would the madman keep hiding it, afraid that he would find out? The madman stared at the gray castle and said, in other words, we have no choice. Yes, but don't blame me. You can only blame yourselves for overestimating yourselves and barging into the far west. Let's continue. The mysterious man laughed hoarsely. More puppets came out from the gray mist, letting out roars. As for the madman, he was still a perfect transcendent. However, Qin Feiyang's puppet was a half-step transcendent god. Qin Feiyang's expression changed. Bastard, he's just a perfect war god. How can he defeat a half-step paragon god? Madman roared as well. This is the price for your disobedience. If he dares to play any more tricks, he'll have to face early, minor, or even great perfection paragon puppets. The mysterious man laughed mockingly. Damn you! The madman was enraged. He grabbed the halberd and like a demonic god, he crushed the puppets one by one and charged towards the gray castle with murderous intent. Do you think I'm a pushover? When he reached the top of the gray castle, the madman roared. He grabbed the halberd with both hands and slashed at the gray castle. Clang! A loud noise shook the clouds. The halberd shattered on the spot. However, the gray castle was not damaged at all. How is this possible? The madman stared at the gray castle in a daze. With your strength, you want to shake this divine artifact? The mysterious man's disdainful voice sounded. If I can't destroy this castle, then I'll split open this domain of death. The madman was furious. He condensed the halberd again and charged into the sky, slashing at the barrier. Boom! However, when the halberd landed on the barrier, it was as if it had hit a sponge. All the power and sharpness were dissolved by the domain of death. The madman couldn't help but feel a sense of powerlessness. What the hell is this thing? He didn't have time to think. Another large group of puppets charged at him. He quickly began to counterattack. Back to Qin Feiyang. In the face of a half-step peerless god puppet, he was flustered. Although the kill formula was heaven-defying and could ignore the barrier of major realms, there were already 7 minor realms between the perfect war god and the half-step supreme god. Even the kill formula was difficult to deal with. What's more, it wasn't just 1 or 2 puppets. It was a large group, countless of them. Boom. In less than 3 breaths, he was forced to activate the battle formula, the advance formula, and the return formula. But even so, he couldn't stop those puppets. Puff. Suddenly, A beast rushed behind Qin Fei Yong like lightning. It raised its sharp claws and fiercely clawed at Qin Fei Yong's back. The battle armor formed by the battle formula was cut open on the spot. Several bloody wounds appeared and blood gushed out. And that terrifying force even sent Qin Fei Yong flying. He smashed into the glacier below, blood gushing out of his mouth. Oh no! Qin Fei Yong's expression changed. The madman's expression also changed. Purple gold dragon blood. Exposed. That is, purple gold dragon blood? How is that possible? You have purple gold dragon blood? The mysterious man's exclamation also sounded, full of disbelief. Qin Fei Yong climbed out of the ice and snow. He looked at the puppets in the sky, then looked at the gray castle and heaved a sigh of relief. It's good to be exposed, so I won't be restrained. Madman, hold on. I will make him pay. Qin Fei Yong looked at the madman and said. He rushed into the sky, holding a blood-red long sword, and madly attacked those puppets. So what if you're a half-step supreme god? In the end, you're just puppets without consciousness. He roared angrily and slashed out with his sword. The ferocious beast that was charging at the front was actually split into two halves. Blood poured down like a waterfall. Open. Qin Fei Yong's aura was like a rainbow. His long hair quickly turned blood-red. With a shout, a large blood-red domain appeared. Boom. The murderous aura around him soared countless times in an instant. This was his ultimate move. Slaughter domain. As soon as the slaughter domain was opened, the blood from the mountain of corpses below turned into a long blood river, flowing against the current and into the slaughter domain. In the end, the blood all entered the blood-red long sword in Qin Fei Yong's hand. Clang! The blood-red long sword crazily devoured. Its sharpness and aura were also crazily rising. Damn! The madman looked at Qin Fei Yong in horror. Was he still a human? His entire body was covered in blood, and he looked just like a god of death who had returned, especially that murderous aura, which he had never seen before in his life. Strong indeed, but I'm not bad either. Kill! The madman roared. His sky piercer was invincible, creating a sea of blood. After Qin Fei Yong opened the slaughter domain, he became even crazier. Moreover, as the blood-red long sword absorbed more blood, its power became stronger and stronger. It became easier to kill those half-step supreme god puppets. About 100 breaths later, the sharpness of the blood-red long sword had soared by more than 2 levels. Even those puppets were as easy as cutting vegetables. As he killed, he absorbed the blood. One had to know. He had been killing in the death domain for an entire night. This night, he didn't know that after killing the puppets, the ground below had long turned into a sea of blood, and these blood were all being crazily absorbed by him. Moreover, compared to the last time when he fought with the demon ancestor and opened the slaughter domain, there was a qualitative difference this time, because the lowest level of absorption this time was the blood of a perfect war god. The creatures of the black tortoise world couldn't compare at all. Even now, he was still absorbing the blood of half-step supreme god. This was even more incomparable. After all, in the black tortoise world, the strongest was only a false god, and there were very few of them. Most of them were below the false god level. Half of them were even mortals. How could ordinary blood compare to God's blood? Naturally not. So this time, although the number wasn't as much as the last time, as long as he was given time, he could still reach the same level as the last time. Clang! As the blood-red long sword absorbed the blood, it trembled violently, as if it was very excited and happy. Its power had soared to another level. Those half-step supreme god puppets were as easy as cutting watermelons at this moment. This time, he was really crazy. Chapter 2107. Purple Gold Dragon Blood. The mysterious man stood in the gray castle, looking at Qin Fei Yong outside, still shocked by the purple gold dragon blood. Of course, he also saw the scene of Qin Fei Yong opening the killing zone. He was also very shocked. What was the background of this boy? Not only did he have the bloodline power of the purple gold divine dragon, but he also had such a terrifying killing technique. Suddenly, he waved his hand gently. Outside, In the death zone where Qin Feiyang was, a large number of puppets at the beginner level of the immortal realm immediately emerged from the gray light fog. Looking at those puppets, Qin Feiyang's face was full of disdain. With a slash of his sword, a puppet was directly split into two, and the blood that flowed out was all absorbed by the blood-red long sword. In less than 10 breaths, all the puppets were slaughtered. Not a drop of blood was left. Even the blood in the corpses was forcibly sucked dry. However, there was still a lot of corpses and blood piled up below. Because the absorption also needed a process, it was impossible to suck all the blood in the death zone dry in an instant. After all, he had been killing for an entire night. The puppets that died in his hands could probably be piled up into dozens of mountains. Fortunately, the death zone where he was imprisoned was big enough. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to pile up. He killed batch after batch. Suddenly, a group of puppets at the beginner level and the great perfection of the immortal realm rushed out at the same time. Qin Feiyang also seemed to be tireless, killing as many as came out as he could. Clang! The power of the blood-red long sword suddenly rose to a new level. He now had a kind of confidence. Even puppets at the great perfection of the immortal realm could be killed with one slash. What kind of killing technique is this? Its power has increased so much. Why hasn't it stopped? Could it be this kind of killing technique can be absorbed endlessly? The mysterious man was surprised. He simply summoned a large number of puppets at the great perfection of the immortal realm. There were more than 3,000 of them. That battle array could simply be described as apocalyptic. Absorbing their blood should be enough to increase the power of the killing technique to the same level as last time. Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. The blood of a perfected god was far more potent than that of a perfected battle god or perfected divine lord. This was a super tonic for the kill formula. His blood-red hair fluttered in the wind as he wielded his blood-red sword and charged forward in a frenzy. Clang! Rumble! At first, it was very difficult to deal with these puppets. His body was also riddled with wounds. There were even a few times when he almost lost his life. However, as it continued to absorb and grow, the blood-red sword began to display its prowess. About half an hour passed. 3,000 golems at the Paragon level had all perished beneath his sword. Clang! After absorbing the divine blood of these puppets, the power of the blood-red longsword increased by another level. This level was no different from the last time he fought the fiend ancestor. The mountain of corpses and sea of blood below had also been completely absorbed. Not a single drop of blood could be squeezed out of those corpses. The entire barrier was filled with the aura of death, as if it was hell. Qin Feiyang lowered his head to look at the blood-red longsword and muttered, "It's time to fight back." Last time in the Sea of Reincarnation, when the blood-red longsword reached this level, even the two heaven-defying artifacts, Bloodblade and Snow, couldn't block it, let alone this gray castle. Taking a step back, even if this gray castle was also a heaven-defying artifact, the blood-red longsword could still destroy it. "Are you a descendant of Qin Batian?" Suddenly, the mysterious man's voice sounded. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He raised his head to look at the gray castle and asked in surprise, "You also know my ancestor?" "Ancestor? You really are his descendant?" The mysterious man whispered. "You've seen him?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Yes, I've seen him," the mysterious man said. "When? Where is he?" Qin Feiyang was overjoyed and hurriedly said, Many years ago. As for where he is now, I'm afraid you won't be able to find him, because he has already been refined into a puppet by me." The mysterious man laughed. "Refined into a puppet?" Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. "Qin Feiyang, don't believe his nonsense. With your ancestor's methods, even if he isn't his opponent, it's impossible for him to be refined into a puppet." Madman shouted. Qin Feiyang suddenly recovered and sneered. "That's right. My ancestor is omnipotent. How could he fall into your hands? Break for me." With a loud shout, he raised his blood-red long sword and slashed at the death domain. Madman's eyes were filled with anticipation. Kacha, accompanied by a deafening sound. Under Madman's expectant gaze, the death domain finally shattered. Madman was overjoyed and shouted, "Quickly, break my domain of death." Qin Feiyong took a step forward and slashed at the death domain that trapped Madman. Gotcha! The death domain also shattered instantly. After the domain of death shattered, the clouds of black mist also dissipated. In other words, the mysterious man could no longer summon a puppet. "Ha!" Madman laughed and shouted, "Let's go! Destroy that gray castle." Madman grabbed the halberd. Qin Feiyong grabbed the blood-red longsword. The two's aura soared into the sky as they rushed above the gray castle and shouted at the same time. Slash! The halberd and blood-red longsword slashed at the gray castle with a world-destroying sharpness. Boom! The gray castle also suddenly released a dazzling divine light. "You want to destroy my main body with just the two of you?" In your dreams. The mysterious man was disdainful. However, at the next moment, when the halberd and blood-red longsword fell, the gray castle was directly split in half with a deafening sound. "How is this possible?" the mysterious man exclaimed. His tone was no longer as arrogant as before, but with a strong sense of panic. "Main body?" Qin Feiyong and Madman looked at each other. Madman said in disbelief, "Is there something wrong with my ears? He actually said that this gray castle is his main body?" "I also heard him say that," Qin Feiyong said. "Could it be?" The two seemed to have thought of something and immediately looked at the gray castle, their eyes shining. Main body. Originally, they all thought that this mysterious man was a living person. However, they didn't expect that he was the weapon spirit of the gray castle. For a weapon spirit to be so powerful, this gray castle must be a heaven-defying weapon. "Continue," Madman shouted. Qin Feiyong nodded. Although it was a heaven-defying weapon, this time it really angered him. Clang! The two once again held the halberd and blood-red longsword and slashed at the gray castle. The halberd was still fine. The blood-red longsword emitted a sharp aura, making the weapon spirit of the gray castle almost despair. "Qin Feiyong, Madman, I will remember you. Just wait for me." The weapon spirit roared with resentment, and the gray castle that was cut in half immediately rose into the air. "Escape? Not a chance." Qin Feiyong and Madman shouted angrily. The halberd and blood-red longsword flew out of their hands. Clang! The gray castle, which had already been cut in half, was once again divided into two halves, becoming four halves. Its speed instantly dropped by a large margin. Qin Feiyong and Madman waved their hands and recalled the blood-red longsword and the halberd. Then, using the auxiliary technique, they chased after the gray castle like lightning and blocked it from the front and back. Damn it! Damn it! If I knew earlier, I would have killed you at the first moment." The weapon spirit roared again and again. "There is no such thing as if you knew earlier. But we knew that even if we could hold on for a month, you would definitely not let us go in the end." Madman sneered. Clang! Qin Feiyong shook the blood-red longsword in his hand. His aura firmly locked onto the gray castle and said, "There is no medicine for regret in this world. You can only blame yourself for being careless and underestimating us. Now answer my question. Where did you see my ancestor?" "You don't think I'm stupid? If I tell you, do I still have a way to live?" The weapon spirit sneered. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and said, "As long as you didn't lie to me, I can let you go." "Really?" the weapon spirit asked. "I, Qin Feiyong, am a man of my word," Qin Feiyong said. The weapon spirit pondered for a moment and said, "It seems that more than 2,000 years ago, I saw him and Lu Zhengyang in the deepest part of the Sky Dragon Sea." "More than 2,000 years?" Madman was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously, "What were they doing in the deepest part of the Sky Dragon Sea?" "I don't know. Qin Batian and Lu Zhengyang's methods are indeed terrifying as you said. Back then, they weren't very strong. I really wanted to refine them into puppets, but the result was the same as today. I was almost killed by them. Later, I escaped from the Sky Dragon Sea and have been hiding in the far west. But I didn't expect to meet their descendants now." The weapon spirit sighed and was a little depressed. Qin Feiyong said, "So where are my ancestors now?" "You don't know either." "And But according to my estimation, they should still be in the Sky Dragon Sea. Although I don't know what they are doing, but I vaguely feel that they are planning something, the weapon spirit said. Sky Dragon Sea. Qin Feiyang muttered and said in a deep voice, then where did you get the potential pill and potential pill? The weapon spirit said, I snatched them from your ancestors. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang came to a realization and frowned. Then why did you nurture that youth called Long Tianyu? So you really did learn of this sovereign's existence from him. How infuriating. If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have helped him. The weapon spirit was furious. Although Long Tianyu is young, he is very righteous and did not betray you. It was because I forcefully read his memories that I learned of your existence. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. In that case, I wronged him? The weapon spirit said in a daze. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, quickly answer my question. This sovereign is just feeling sorry for him. His parents, as well as his grandfather, actually didn't die an unnatural death. Instead, they were assassinated. The weapon spirit sighed. What? Qin Feiyang was shocked and said, who secretly killed them? Why did they secretly kill them? After reading Long Tianyu's memories, he knew the cause of death of Long Tianyu's parents and grandfather. They all died under the claws of fierce beasts. But he did not expect that there was actually another secret. Chapter 2108. The artifact spirit said, their village chief. Village chief? Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other. That's right. Long Tianyu's mother wasn't from the village. She was brought back by Long Tianyu's father. She was quite beautiful. That village chief was lascivious. The moment she entered the village, he coveted her. But at that time, she was pregnant. The village chief had some misgivings and didn't dare to do anything. Not long after, Long Tianyu was born. The village chief couldn't hold back anymore. He tricked Long Tianyu's mother into an ice valley at the edge of the far west land and raped her. At this point, the artifact spirit paused and said, I believe that you should know what happened without me explaining. Qin Feiyang and Madman nodded. After being humiliated, Long Tianyu's mother thought that the village chief would let her go as long as she didn't say anything. But on the contrary, not only did the village chief not let her go, he even used Long Tianyu to threaten her and forced her to submit. Later, she couldn't bear such humiliation and told Long Tianyu's father. After learning of this, Long Tianyu's father couldn't help but want to kill. But in consideration of his reputation, he didn't say anything. The couple discussed and secretly asked the village chief to go out and kill him. But the village chief was stronger than them. In the end, not only did they not succeed, they died in the village chief's hands. The artifact spirit sighed. They're worse than beasts. Madman said angrily. Qin Feiyang also couldn't help but be angry. He asked, what happened later? Later, the village chief returned to the village and painfully told everyone that the couple had been clawed by ferocious beasts. He pretended to be a good person and took good care of Long Tianyu and Long Tianyu's grandfather, and the grandfather and grandson, who didn't know, were grateful to him. But one day, Long Tianyu's grandfather suddenly found a secret compartment in the house. There was a letter in the secret compartment. It was left behind by Long Tianyu's parents before they died. It was precisely because they were afraid of failure that they wrote down all the evil deeds of the village chief and hid them in the hidden compartment. After knowing the true cause of his son and daughter-in-law's death, Long Tianyu's grandfather was filled with grief. But he's just an ordinary old man. He's powerless to take revenge. Furthermore, the village chief is usually a nice guy in the village. Even if he were to announce the letter, no one would necessarily believe him. After much consideration, he thought of poisoning, but the result was obvious. He also failed and was killed by the village chief instead. Moreover, it was faked that he died under the claws of a vicious beast. In that case, Long Tianyu will truly become an orphan, the artifact spirit said. Madman asked, does Long Tianyu know about this? Before the artifact spirit could speak, Qin Feiyang said, he doesn't know, because I didn't read any of his memories. Yes, Long Tianyu doesn't know. Even now, He still thinks that the village chief is sincerely taking care of him. The artifact spirit said. Qin Feiyang asked, "Then how did you know? And how did you know it so clearly?" The artifact spirit said, "I was bored and suddenly encountered this matter. I felt that it was quite interesting, so I paid special attention to it." Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Then why didn't you help them?" "Help? Based on what? They're just a bunch of ants. Are they worthy of this sovereign's help?" The artifact spirit's tone was full of disdain. "If that's the case, then why did you help Long Tianyu?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. This sovereign was moved by his perseverance. He entered the far west several times to search for opportunities and good fortune. The willpower he displayed during this period made this sovereign somewhat impressed. Later, he couldn't bear the invasion of the cold current and fainted on the snow. This sovereign couldn't bear it and kindly helped him. As for the truth, it was too big of a blow for a child of his age. Therefore, this sovereign has been hiding it from him. I wanted to wait for him to grow up before telling him, so that he can personally avenge his family. The artifact spirit said with a hint of doting love for Long Tianyu. Qin Feiyang said, "It seems that you have developed feelings for Long Tianyu after being together with him for so many years."
Yes.
"This child is sensible and obedient. He has always called me grandpa." As time passed, this sovereign began to treat him like a grandson. Otherwise, this sovereign wouldn't have given him the potential elixir, nor would I have nurtured him wholeheartedly. The artifact spirit said, "Since you care so much about him, why didn't you keep him by your side? You must know that if you let him return to the village, he might be killed by the village chief." Qin Feiyang said, "He's a child after all. How lonely would it be to let him stay here alone? He's a child. He must have a good childhood. That's why this sovereign let him return to the village." As for the village chief, this sovereign had secretly planted a wisp of death energy in his body 2 years ago. As long as he has the intention to kill Long Tianyu, this sovereign will be able to sense it immediately. The artifact spirit said. "A good childhood," Qin Feiyang muttered. Inexplicably, he couldn't help but envy Long Tianyu. Because everyone wanted to have a good childhood, but they might not be able to do so, just like him. Although after being expelled from the imperial capital, Uncle Yuan had always been by his side. However, his heart had never been at peace for a single day. Since 10 years ago, he had been burdened with hatred, suffering, and torment. But Long Tianyu was different. Although Long Tianyu's background was also very miserable, he didn't know the truth now. He was still the same as before. He was an innocent child, enjoying the good childhood that a child should have. Moreover, there was also the gray castle silently protecting him. So in comparison, Long Tianyu was much happier than him. The artifact spirit suddenly said, "You are the descendant of Qin Batian. Then you should also have the pill formulas for the potential elixir." And Qin Feiyang nodded. The artifact spirit was overjoyed and quickly said, "Then how about we discuss a condition?" "What condition?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. As the descendant of Qin Batian, your situation in the northern region is definitely not very good. However, this sovereign can help you. With this sovereign's strength, even if you are facing the 2 palace masters and the 10 great elders of the 9 heavens palace, this sovereign can help you kill a bloody path. Furthermore, this sovereign can protect you and enter the heavenly dragon sea to search for the whereabouts of Qin Batian and Lu Zhengyang. The artifact spirit said proudly. Qin Feiyang's heart skipped a beat. It was already very obvious that this gray castle was definitely a heaven-defying divine artifact. If the gray castle really helped him, then in the future, he would have more confidence in the 9 heavens palace. Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang asked, "What is your condition?" The artifact spirit said, "Help this sovereign to nurture Long Tianyu." "It's that simple?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "Yes," the artifact spirit said. Qin Feiyang frowned. "With your ability, you shouldn't need me to help you nurture him, right?" "That's true. Although your killing technique is heaven-defying, whether it is cultivation or experience, compared to this sovereign, they are far inferior. However, this sovereign only has a little potential pill and a few other potential pills. I don't have any other pills that can open the gate of potential." The artifact spirit said, "So that's the case." Qin Feiyong was enlightened. Madman suddenly transmitted his voice. "Kid, be careful. This might be a stalling tactic." A stalling tactic? Qin Feiyong was shocked. If not for Madman's reminder, he would have forgotten that the slaughter domain had a time limit. The slaughter domain could only be maintained for an hour. More than half of it had already passed. In other words, there was not much time left for the slaughter domain to open. Once the slaughter domain ended, he would undoubtedly become a lamb again, unless it recognized him as its master or controlled him. However, he had no way to forcefully recognize or control such a heaven-defying divine artifact. Wait a minute. The fact that the slaughter domain had a time limit, other than himself and the people around him, no one else knew about it. Therefore, as long as he didn't say anything, Grey Castle would probably think that he could open the slaughter domain at any time. As such, Grey Castle naturally wouldn't dare to act rashly. That wouldn't do. The artifact spirit had witnessed the entire process of opening the slaughter domain. Even if he didn't know that the slaughter domain had a time limit, he must have seen that the slaughter domain needed to absorb a large amount of blood to display its power. With Grey Castle's strength, it was completely capable of killing him while he was in the process of opening the slaughter domain and absorbing blood. In other words, if he didn't take the opportunity to destroy Grey Castle now, anything could happen in the future. However, wasn't it too much of a pity to destroy such a heaven-defying divine artifact? Was there any way to get the best of both worlds? What? You don't believe this sovereign's words and are afraid that this sovereign will plot against you? Seeing that Qin Feiyong didn't speak for a long time, the artifact spirit was suspicious. Yes, Qin Feiyong didn't deny it. Because there was no need. I didn't expect you to be such a vigilant person. How about this? This sovereign will let you recognize me as your master first. When we find Qin Batian and Lu Xingyang, you can remove the blood contract. The artifact spirit said. When Qin Feiyong heard this, he looked at the Grey Castle with an astonished expression. It actually took the initiative to recognize him as its master? Hey, do you think I don't exist? When Madman heard these words, he couldn't sit still because it was obvious that Grey Castle didn't play any tricks. They were sincere in wanting to help Qin Feiyong. Then he couldn't continue to stand idly by. After all, it was a heaven-defying divine artifact. Such a big advantage. How could he give it to Qin Feiyong? You have an opinion? The artifact spirit was suspicious. Of course. Look at me. In terms of talent, I'm stronger than Qin Feiyong. In terms of status, I'm also higher than Qin Feiyong. If you follow me, I guarantee that you'll live a good life. As for training Long Tianyu, that's not a problem for me. It's as simple as drinking tea and chatting. Madman said. Qin Feiyong's face turned black. This was clearly trying to poach him. The artifact spirit pondered for a while and said, "It seems to make sense, but can you refine pills like the potential pill?" Madman was quite happy at first, but when he heard the second half of the sentence, he shrank back. He didn't even have the pill recipe, let alone refining these pills. Moreover, even if he had the pill recipe, he couldn't refine it, because he wasn't an alchemist at all. If you can't refine it, why are you still interrupting? Get lost. The artifact spirit shouted ruthlessly. Chapter 2109. The madman's expression stiffened. Although I can't refine it with my face, what kind of pill can I get? The artifact spirit said. Is that so? Of course. The madman nodded and pointed at Qin Feiyong. If you don't believe me, ask this kid. If I ask him for a pill, will he not give it to me? Qin Feiyong grinned and looked at the madman. Sorry, what did you say? I don't understand. A row of black lines appeared on the madman's forehead. He glared at Qin Feiyong and roared, Can't you cooperate? If it's the truth, I will definitely cooperate with you. But bragging, forget it. We have to be honest people. Qin Feiyong chuckled. You want me to cooperate with you when you're trying to steal my woman? Do you think I'm stupid? The madman gritted his teeth in anger. Is there a need to do this? Yesterday, before entering the land of the far west, didn't you say that if there is any treasure, you will give it to me? Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at him. Fuck. What I mean is ordinary treasures. But this is an ordinary treasure? This is a heaven-defying artifact. It might even control the power of laws. The madman thought. Qin Feiyong said, Fine, let's be fair and let the artifact spirit choose. If the artifact spirit chooses, it will definitely choose you. The madman was furious. If he could refine a pill that could open the door of potential, then he had an absolute chance of winning. Then you can't blame me. Who told you not to be an alchemist? Qin Feiyong smiled proudly. The madman was furious. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have brought this guy along. Qin Feiyong looked at the gray castle and said, You said it yourself. I didn't force you. Yes. But let's talk about the ugly things first. If you don't help me break the blood contract when I find Qin Batian and Lu Jingyang, I will take you down with me even if I have to destroy my own body. The artifact spirit snorted coldly, his tone filled with a bone-piercing chill. All right, it's a deal. Qin Feiyong cut his finger and a drop of purple gold dragon blood seeped out and entered the gray castle. The artifact spirit really didn't resist. Very soon, the master recognition process was complete. Qin Feiyong finally let out a sigh of relief and closed the slaughter domain. The blood-red sword in his hand also dissipated. As soon as the slaughter domain disappeared, the bone-piercing cold current surged violently. Madman pursed his lips and formed a barrier to protect Qin Feiyong. He was very reluctant to do so, because right now, he was very depressed. He had spent so much effort, but in the end, he didn't get anything. Instead, it all went to Qin Feiyong. Just thinking about it made him unhappy. However, if Qin Feiyong really froze to death here, it would be troublesome. Thank you. Qin Feiyong smiled. Scram. Madman shouted coldly. Just looking at it made him angry. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. He turned to look at the gray castle and asked, Your main body should be able to repair itself, right? Of course. The artifact spirit said proudly. Qin Feiyong said again, Then can you let us take a look inside your main body? He was very curious about the inside of the gray castle. You are now considered this sovereign's master. If you want to go in, it's just a thought. There is no need to get this sovereign's permission, right? The artifact spirit was a little speechless. Isn't this a form of respect for you? Qin Feiyong laughed. Respect? The artifact spirit was stunned and laughed hoarsely. This is the first time this sovereign has heard that a human would respect an artifact spirit. You are indeed different. All right, after this sovereign has repaired my main body, I will let you go in and take a look. All right. Qin Feiyong nodded. Then this sovereign will borrow your body. After the artifact spirit said that, the gray castle quickly shrank and entered Qin Feiyong's body in an instant. It floated in his qi sea and flickered with a hazy light. This is really infuriating. Madman stared at Qin Feiyong with a face full of envy and jealousy. This is my character. In this matter, your character is still not as good as mine. Qin Feiyong laughed. Look at how cocky you are, Madman said with a face full of contempt. But you can't let this daddy come here for nothing, right? What do you want? Qin Feiyong asked with a smile. After obtaining the gray castle, he was in a good mood. You have to give this daddy something? How about this? Give this daddy your spatial divine item. This daddy doesn't mind. Madman said. You don't mind? I can't bear to. Don't even think about it. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. He knew that this guy wanted the black tortoise world. It's just a spatial divine item. Is there a need for you? Madman despised. Qin Feiyong waved his hand impatiently and said, Okay. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and go back. How could Madman be willing? He had to get some benefits. Qin Feiyong said angrily, I say, what do you want? What's the point of being so wishy-washy for a man? Do you know that this is a classic example of taking advantage of others? Madman was instantly furious. Qin Feiyong smiled embarrassedly and said, Okay. This time I owe you a favor. If you need anything in the future, just come and find me. After all, it was Madman who brought him to the far Westland. He also did his best on the way. As a person, he couldn't only care about himself. That's more like it. Madman's anger subsided a lot. Then, with Qin Feiyang, he turned into a stream of light and disappeared like lightning. In the evening, two figures flew out of the far west land. It was Qin Feiyang and Madman. Madman asked, "Are we going back now?" "To see Tianyu." A hoarse voice sounded from Qin Feiyang's body. It was the artifact spirit. Madman sneered, "You are quite concerned about him." The artifact spirit ignored him and asked, "Are you going back to Nine Heaven Palace next?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Then do you want to bring Long Tianyu with you?" "I don't feel at ease leaving him here alone." The artifact spirit was worried. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Madman. "This won't do. The rules of Nine Heaven Palace are that one must be at least a war god and pass the official test to enter Nine Heaven Palace." Madman shook his head. The artifact spirit was hesitant. "How about this? Let's ask his opinion first and see if he wants to stay in the village or go with us." Qin Feiyang said. "Okay." The artifact spirit replied. Qin Feiyang retracted his aura, opened an altar, and teleported to the sky above the village. In the evening, the village was brightly lit. Many people were taking a walk outside to enjoy the shade. Children were also playing happily. However, they couldn't find Long Tianyu in the village. Where did he go? Qin Feiyang frowned. Shua. The gray castle appeared and said, "This noble one guesses that he must be cultivating in a secret room in his home." Secret room? Qin Feiyang was surprised. "Yes. I've warned him that when he cultivates, he must find a secluded place, because I gave him a lot of battle chi pills. And they were all battle chi pills with 5 veins and above. If other people in the village saw these battle chi pills, especially the village chief, they would definitely be greedy. So when he came back from the far west, he dug a secret room under his bedroom. At night, he would cultivate in the secret room." The artifact spirit said. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he carefully looked at Long Tianyu's memories that he had read. There was indeed such a thing. After reading the memories, he also knew where Long Tianyu's home was. Shua. He took a step and instantly landed in a remote corner on the left side of the village. There was a small wooden house in this corner. There was only one floor. It was very shabby. There were no other houses within a few hundred meters. It seemed a little lonely. This was Long Tianyu's home. In fact, Long Tianyu didn't live here in the past. His family originally lived not far from the entrance of the village. There were many neighbors. It was only after his grandfather passed away that he moved here. On one hand, it was to be able to cultivate in peace. On the other hand, because of the death of his parents and grandfather, his personality became a little lonely. He didn't like to live too close to others. "Let's go." Qin Feiyang smiled. But just as Qin Feiyang, Madman, and the gray castle were about to walk out of the small wooden house, a black shadow suddenly flew over from afar. Qin Feiyang and Madman frowned. If this black shadow was out in the open, they wouldn't think too much about it. However, that black shadow was very sneaky. It didn't make the slightest bit of sound. "Who is he?" Madman was suspicious. "He is the village chief of this village." The voice of the artifact spirit resounded in their minds. Qin Feiyang and Madman's hearts trembled. The village chief was sneaky. It definitely wasn't anything good. Madman secretly said, "This kind of scum. Why don't we directly kill him?" "Wait first. Let's see what he wants to do." Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Qin Feiyang and Madman and the gray castle were standing not far away from the small wooden house, but the black shadow didn't notice them at all. After all, their cultivation was too high. Even if they stood behind the village chief might not notice them. Finally, the village chief rushed to the door of the small wooden house. He didn't knock on the door, nor did he make any sound. Through the crack of the door, it seemed like he was looking at the situation inside the hall. Qin Feiyang and Madman finally saw the village chief's face clearly. It was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was about 1.8 meters tall and had a slender figure. His face was gentle and didn't seem to have any hostility. Don't say. Just from his appearance, if they didn't know about this person's evil deeds beforehand, Qin Feiyang and Madman wouldn't have thought that the village chief was an ugly person. Let's go over. Qin Feiyong secretly said. The two in the gray castle silently appeared behind the village chief. They didn't make a sound. They were just inches away. Not only did the village chief not feel the danger behind him, he kept muttering. He disappeared in one night. Where did this little bastard hide to cultivate? And he improved so quickly? If there's nothing fishy about this, I'll chop off my head and feed it to the dogs. The village chief only had the cultivation of a 5-star combat emperor, while Qin Feiyong and Madman and the Grey Castle were at least perfect combat gods. As long as they retracted their aura and didn't take the initiative to say anything, the village chief would never discover them. Strange. The village chief muttered to himself, then turned around and walked towards the window of the bedroom. Qin Feiyong and Madman and the Grey Castle also turned around when the village chief turned around. They always maintained the angle of standing behind the village chief. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.